Welcome to a different kind of English journey. This is not about memorizing rules or chasing perfection. This is about understanding how English truly works and learning to use it with confidence in real life. Step by step, you will move from confusion to clarity, from hesitation to natural speech. You will learn how words connect, how meaning flows, and how to express yourself without fear. By the end, English will no longer feel like a subject you study, but a skill you live with calm, confidence, and pride. Chapter 1. Words Matter. When most people think about learning English, they think about grammar rules, long explanations, and the fear of getting things wrong. That fear alone is enough to stop many learners before they even begin. But here is the truth that often gets hidden. English is not hard. It only feels hard when you do not understand what words are actually doing. Words are not random. They are not floating pieces you throw together and hope for the best. Every word has a job. Every word has a role. And once you understand that, English starts to feel calm, logical, and even enjoyable. A word is not just a word. A word is an action, a name, a description, a connector, or a signal. Inside every sentence, words are working together like a team. Some words lead, some support, some describe, and some connect ideas smoothly. When you look at English this way, the language stops feeling like a big wall and starts feeling like a system you can understand step by step. This is why parts of speech exist. Not to confuse you, not to test you, but to explain what each word is doing so your brain can relax and follow the logic. Many learners feel that English is confusing because they try to memorize grammar rules without understanding meaning. They memorize tables, definitions, and exceptions. But when it is time to speak, everything disappears. This happens because memorization without understanding does not build confidence. Understanding function does. When you know why a word is used, where it belongs, and what role it plays, you do not need to panic. You start thinking instead of guessing. This course is built on that idea. We will not chase rules, we will understand roles. Think about real life for a moment. Imagine a football team, a classroom, or even a family. Every person has a role. Someone leads, someone supports, someone explains, someone connects people together. If everyone tried to do the same job, nothing would work. Language is exactly the same. Words are like people in a team or tools in a toolbox. A hammer is not a screwdriver, and a screwdriver is not a hammer. Both are useful, but only when used correctly. English words work best when they are used for the job they are meant to do. This is why the same word can change meaning depending on how it is used. A word can act like a name in one sentence and like an action in another. For beginners, this feels confusing at first, but it is actually one of the most beautiful parts of English. The language is flexible, not fixed. Once you understand word roles, you stop asking, "What rule is this?" and start asking, "What is this word doing here?" That one question changes everything. Beginners struggle not because they are weak learners, but because they are never taught to see language clearly. They are told to memorize instead of observe. They are corrected without being guided. They are made to feel wrong instead of curious. This course is designed to fix that. Slowly, calmly, and clearly, you will learn to see English the way strong speakers see it. You will learn how words behave, not just how they look on paper. And when you see the behavior, confidence grows naturally. Native speakers do not think in grammar rules when they speak. They do not stop to name parts of speech in their heads. They think in meaning. They think in roles, Their brains recognize patterns because they understand function, not because they memorize definitions. This course helps you build that same kind of thinking, step by step, without pressure. You will start to notice patterns. You will start to predict sentence structure. You will feel less surprised by English, and that feeling alone is powerful. In English, there are 8 main parts of speech. You do not need to memorize them right now. You only need to know that they exist to explain how words work together. There are words that name things, words that show action, words that describe, words that replace names, words that connect ideas, words that show emotion, words that give extra detail, and words that show relationships. Each one has a purpose, each one has a place, and over this course you will learn them naturally, with real examples and real understanding. By the end of this course, you will not just know what parts of speech are, you will feel them. You will hear them when you listen. You will choose them more confidently when you speak. You will understand why a sentence sounds right or wrong, even if you cannot explain it with technical words. That is real learning. That is real fluency. And it starts with this simple idea: words matter. English is logical. It follows patterns. It makes sense when you stop fighting it and start understanding it. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be fast. You only need to be aware. This chapter is not here to overwhelm you. It is here to invite you into the language gently. Take your time, stay curious. Trust that understanding will come. Because once you understand what words do, English opens its doors to you. And this is just the beginning. Chapter 2. Nouns Basics. When you begin learning English, there is one type of word that quietly holds everything together, even if learners do not notice it at first. That word type is the noun. Nouns are the foundation of English because they give us something to talk about. Without nouns, language becomes empty sound. With nouns, English becomes real. It becomes connected to your life, your world, your experiences, and your thoughts. This is why learning nouns is not just a grammar lesson. It is the moment when English starts to feel meaningful. In very simple words, a noun is a word that names something. It can name a person, a place, a thing, or even an idea. That is it. No complicated definition is needed. If you can point to it, imagine it, feel it, or think about it, it can usually be named with a noun. A teacher, a city, a phone, a chair, happiness, fear, love, time, and success are all nouns. They may feel different from each other, but they share one job. They give a name to what exists in our minds or in the world around us. Think about your daily life for a moment. From the moment you wake up, nouns are everywhere. You open your eyes and see a room. You check your phone. You drink water. You think about work, school, family, or plans. Every one of those words is a noun. This is important because it shows you that English is not separate from your life. English already exists inside your daily routine. You are not learning something foreign, you are learning how to name what you already know. Nouns appear naturally in everyday sentences. When you say something like, "I need water," the word water is the noun that carries meaning. When you say, "My brother is tired," the noun brother tells us who you are talking about. When you say, "This job is difficult," the noun job becomes the focus of the sentence. If you remove the noun, the sentence loses its meaning. This is why nouns are not optional. They are essential. Almost every sentence in English needs a noun, even if the noun is not clearly spoken. Sometimes the noun is obvious and sometimes it is implied. For example, when someone asks, "Are you ready?" the noun you is already understood. The sentence still has something it is talking about. English does not work without that center. There must always be a focus, a subject, or an idea, and nouns give us that focus. Many learners struggle to identify nouns because they try to analyze too much. They ask themselves many questions at once and become unsure. A better way is to listen for meaning. When you hear a sentence, ask yourself, what is this sentence about? The answer is usually a noun. In spoken English, nouns are often clear because speakers naturally stress important words. With practice, your ear will start to catch them without effort. Nouns also appear naturally in questions and answers. When someone asks, "What is your name?" the noun name is already guiding the conversation. When someone asks, "Where is the bus?" the noun bus becomes the focus. Answers repeat or replace nouns because communication depends on shared understanding. Once you notice this, questions and answers feel less confusing and more predictable. One common beginner mistake is thinking that nouns are only physical objects. This is not true. Ideas and feelings are also nouns. Words like freedom, confidence, pressure, and hope are just as important as table or house. Another common mistake is confusing nouns with actions. Learners sometimes think a word is a verb just because it feels active, but if the word is naming something, it is a noun. Understanding this difference will become clearer as we move forward in the course. Another mistake beginners make is worrying too much about correctness too early. At this stage, your goal is not perfection. Your goal is awareness. You want to start noticing nouns around you without judging yourself. When you hear English, when you read something simple, or when you think in your own language, gently ask yourself what is being named. This habit builds confidence quietly and steadily. A powerful practice mindset is to connect nouns to your environment. Look around you and name what you see in English. You do not need full sentences yet. Just notice a window, a desk, a bag, a road, a shop. Then move deeper. A memory, a plan, a problem, a dream. This kind of noticing trains your brain to see English as something alive, not something trapped in a book. When you are ready, you can begin building very simple sentences with nouns. You do not need long sentences. You do not need advanced grammar. A noun plus a simple structure is enough. Sentences like "this book is helpful," or "my city is busy," or "English feels difficult today" are powerful because they are honest and clear. Each one starts with a noun that anchors meaning. As we close this chapter, remember this. Nouns are not just grammar terms. They are the names of your world. When you learn nouns, you are learning how to bring your life into English. You are giving English something to talk about. That is why nouns come early in learning, and that is why they matter so deeply. You do not need to rush. You do not need to memorize lists. Just stay aware. Stay curious. Every time you notice a noun, you are building the foundation of your English quietly and correctly. And from this foundation, everything else will grow. Chapter 3. Types of Nouns. Now that you understand what a noun is and why it matters, it is time to take a gentle step deeper. This chapter is not about memorizing labels or feeling overwhelmed by categories. It is about seeing patterns clearly. English does not create noun types to confuse learners. These types exist because we use nouns in different ways in real life. Once you see how these categories match everyday thinking, everything starts to feel natural instead of complicated. Let us begin with one of the most basic and useful distinctions in English: common nouns and proper nouns. A common noun names something in a general way. It does not point to one special person or place. Words like city, teacher, book, and country are common nouns because they describe a type, not a specific identity. A proper noun, on the other hand, names something unique. London, Sarah, English, Pakistan, and Monday are proper nouns because they point to one specific thing. You do not need to memorize this rule as grammar. Just notice how proper nouns feel more personal and specific. That feeling is what matters. You may also notice that proper nouns are usually written with a capital letter. This is not a random rule. The capital letter visually tells the reader, this is special. This is one specific name. When you understand the reason, remembering the rule becomes easy. In speaking, the difference is shown through meaning, not writing, which is why native speakers never think about the label. They simply know when they are talking about something general and when they are talking about something specific. Another important way to understand nouns is to notice whether we can experience them with our senses or only with our mind. Concrete nouns are nouns you can see, touch, hear, smell, or taste. Words like apple, chair, rain, music, and phone are concrete nouns because they exist in the physical world. Abstract nouns are different. They name ideas, feelings, and states that you cannot touch physically, such as happiness, freedom, fear, confidence, or patience. These nouns live inside the mind, but they are just as real in communication. Many beginners feel that abstract nouns are harder, but that is only because they are not visible. In reality, we use abstract nouns every day. When you say you feel tired, worried, motivated, or proud, you are already using abstract nouns in English thinking. The key is to remember that English allows us to name not only objects, but also emotions and ideas. This makes the language expressive and human. Another major difference between nouns is whether we can count them or not. Countable nouns are nouns that can be counted easily. One book, two books, three books, one apple, many apples. These nouns usually have singular and plural forms. Uncountable nouns are nouns that we do not normally count as individual units. Water, rice, information, money, and advice are good examples. We experience them as a mass or a whole, not as separate pieces. This difference matters because it changes how we speak. With countable nouns, we can use numbers directly. With uncountable nouns, we usually talk about amount, not number. This is why English sounds strange when learners say things like two informations or many, money. The idea is understandable, but the structure does not match how English sees the noun. English does not see information or money as separate items. It sees them as a whole. Collective nouns are another gentle category that often sounds more difficult than it really is. A collective noun names a group of people or things as one unit. Words like team, family, class, crowd, and staff are collective nouns. Even though they describe many individuals, English often treats them as one group. This is why you might hear sentences like, "My family is supportive," or "The team is ready." The focus is on the group as a single idea. Understanding collective nouns helps you follow meaning more clearly, especially in listening. The speaker is not ignoring the people inside the group. The speaker is choosing to talk about the group as one whole. Once you understand that, these sentences stop feeling confusing. Singular and plural forms connect naturally to many of these noun types. A singular noun names one thing. A plural noun names more than one. This seems simple, but learners often feel stress because of spelling changes and irregular forms. At this stage, you do not need to master every exception. What matters most is noticing meaning. Is the speaker talking about one or more than one? That question guides everything. Real-life examples make these differences clearer. Imagine the word school. It is a common noun because it is general. It becomes a proper noun when you say the name of your school. It is a concrete noun because you can see it. It can be countable when you talk about different schools. It can be collective when you talk about the school as a community. The word itself does not change. The way we think about it changes. This is the heart of English. This is also where meaning can shift based on noun type. When you say, I have experience, experience feels abstract and uncountable. When you say, I had a good experience, it becomes countable and specific. English allows this flexibility, and instead of fearing it, learners should see it as a tool. Context decides meaning, not memorization. Common confusion points often come from trying to apply one rule everywhere. Learners may ask, is this noun countable or uncountable? When the better question is, how is this noun being used here? The same noun can behave differently depending on meaning. Once you accept this, confusion turns into curiosity. Comparing sentences is a powerful way to build understanding. I need advice feels different from she gave me a piece of advice. The noun stays the same, but the structure changes to match meaning. English does this naturally, and learners can learn it naturally too by exposure and awareness. Choosing the right noun type does not come from thinking hard in the moment. It comes from familiarity. The more you listen, read, and notice, the more natural it becomes. Your job is not to control English, but to understand how it thinks. As we end this chapter, remember this important idea. Noun types are not rules to trap you. They are explanations that help you see English more clearly. When you understand why a noun behaves the way it does, you stop feeling confused and start feeling in control. That calm understanding is exactly what strong English speakers have, and you are building it right now. Chapter 4. Pronouns, Power. As your English grows, one of the first things that will help you sound more natural and relaxed is learning how to avoid repetition. This is exactly why pronouns exist. Pronouns are not advanced grammar. They are comfort words. They make English smoother, lighter, and more human. Without pronouns, English would feel heavy and tiring, with the same nouns repeating again and again. With pronouns, sentences flow easily, conversations feel alive, and ideas move forward naturally. Pronouns exist to replace nouns when those nouns are already clear. That is their main job. Once we know who or what we are talking about, we do not need to repeat the name again and again. English prefers efficiency and clarity. If you say, my friend lives in my city, my friend works near my house, my friend likes coffee, the meaning is clear, but it feels unnatural. When you say, my friend lives in my city, she works near my house, she likes coffee, English suddenly feels calm and confident. Pronouns reduce noise and increase flow. The most common pronouns in English are personal pronouns. These include subject pronouns and object pronouns. Subject pronouns are used when the pronoun is doing the action. Words like I, you, he, she, it, we, and they appear at the beginning of sentences or before verbs. I work here, she studies English, and they are ready all feel natural, because the pronoun is clearly connected to the action. English depends heavily on these pronouns, because verbs usually need a subject. Object pronouns are used when the pronoun receives the action. Words like me, you, him, her, it, us, and them appear after verbs or prepositions. She called me, I helped him, and they invited us. are common everyday examples. Beginners sometimes confuse subject and object forms, but the key is meaning, not memorization. Ask yourself who is doing the action and who is receiving it. That question guides you naturally. Possessive pronouns help us show ownership without repeating nouns. Words like mine, yours, his, hers, ours, and theirs allow us to speak clearly and smoothly. Instead of saying, this book is my book, English prefers, this book is mine. Possessive pronouns make English feel confident and complete. They also help conversations move faster because we do not need to explain ownership again once it is clear. Reflexive pronouns are used when the subject and the object are the same person or thing. Words like myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, and themselves may sound formal at first, but they appear naturally in daily English. Sentences like, I taught myself English basics, or she prepared herself for the interview feel natural because the action returns to the subject. Reflexive pronouns often show effort, responsibility, or personal involvement, which is why they are emotionally powerful in speech. Demonstrative pronouns help us point to things. Words like this, that, these, and those are deeply connected to real life and physical space. When you say, this is helpful, or those are expensive, you are using English in a very natural way. These pronouns depend on context, distance, and shared understanding between speakers. In conversation, gestures and tone often support them, which is why they feel easy in speaking. Relative pronouns may sound advanced, but at a basic level, they simply help us connect information. Words like who, which, and that allow us to add details without starting a new sentence. The teacher who helped me was kind flows better than stopping and starting again. At this stage, you do not need to master complex structures. You only need to recognize that relative pronouns help English sound connected and thoughtful. Pronouns behave slightly differently in conversation and in writing. In conversation, pronouns appear more frequently because speakers rely on shared context. We point, gesture, and assume understanding. In writing, especially formal writing, nouns may appear more often to avoid confusion. Both styles are correct. The key is knowing when clarity is already present. In speaking, pronouns create warmth. In writing, they create cohesion. Common pronoun mistakes usually come from fear, not lack of intelligence. Learners may repeat nouns too much because they are afraid of being unclear. Others may use the wrong pronoun because they translate directly from their first language. English pronouns do not always match other languages, and that is okay. Mistakes are part of adjustment, not failure. Replacing nouns correctly with pronouns becomes easier when you slow down and notice meaning. Ask yourself whether the listener already knows who or what you are talking about. If the answer is yes, a pronoun is usually the right choice. If the answer is no, use the noun first. This simple awareness builds accuracy naturally without pressure. Speaking naturally with pronouns is not about perfection. It is about rhythm and trust. Native speakers trust context. They trust shared understanding. You can learn to do the same. Start small. Replace one repeated noun with a pronoun. Listen to how it sounds. Feel how the sentence becomes lighter. As we close this chapter, remember that pronouns are not shortcuts. They are signs of comfort in a language. When you use pronouns well, it shows that you understand flow, connection, and meaning. You are no longer just forming sentences, you are communicating, and that is the real power of pronouns. Take your time with them. Notice them in speech. Notice how often native speakers rely on them. Little by little, they will become a natural part of your English voice, and your speech will begin to sound smoother, calmer, and more confident without effort. Chapter 5. Verbs Action. If nouns give English something to talk about, then verbs give English life. Verbs are the engine of every sentence. They show movement, change, feeling, and existence. Without verbs, English would be frozen and silent. With verbs, language breathes. This is why verbs matter so deeply. When learners struggle to speak, it is often not because they do not know many words, but because they are unsure how to use verbs confidently. Once verbs become familiar, English starts to move smoothly and naturally. A verb tells us what is happening. It can show an action, a situation, or a state of being. When you say, I work, she sleeps, or they arrived, the verb tells us what is going on. Even when nothing seems to be happening, a verb is still there. Sentences like, I am tired, or this feels strange still depend on verbs to express meaning. Verbs are not only about movement, they are about experience. In English, there are two very important ways to understand verbs: action verbs and state verbs. Action verbs describe something that can be seen or imagined as movement or activity. Words like walk, eat, write, talk, build, and run clearly show action. These verbs often feel easier for beginners because they match physical experience. You can picture them in your mind. When you say, I drink water, or she opens the door, the verb creates a clear image. State verbs are different. They describe conditions, feelings, thoughts, or possession rather than physical action. Words like know, believe, like, need, feel, seem, and belong fall into this category. These verbs describe what is happening inside the mind or situation. Beginners sometimes feel unsure with these verbs because you cannot see them, but they are just as common and just as important. When you say, I understand, she likes music, or this belongs to me, you are using state verbs naturally. Verbs appear constantly in daily routines, which makes them perfect for practice. Think about your day from morning to night. You wake up, wash, eat, work, study, rest, and sleep. Each step uses verbs. This is why talking about daily life is one of the best ways to build verb confidence. When verbs connect to your real routine, they stop feeling abstract and start feeling useful. You are not learning verbs for grammar tests, you are learning them to describe your life. One reason verbs sometimes confuse learners is that verbs change form to show time. English uses tense to show when something happens. This does not mean English is difficult, it means English is precise. When you say, I work, I worked, or I will work, the verb changes slightly to give clear information about time. This helps listeners understand your message without extra explanation. Instead of fearing tense changes, it is helpful to see them as tools that make communication clearer. Verb placement in English sentences is usually stable and predictable, which is good news for learners. In most sentences, the verb comes after the subject. I learn English, she lives here, and they need help all follow this simple pattern. Questions and negatives may move or add helping words, but the verb still remains central. Once you understand where the verb belongs, sentence structure feels much less confusing. In spoken English, verbs often become shorter and more relaxed. Native speakers focus on meaning rather than perfect form. They use common verbs again and again because clarity matters more than complexity. This is why learning a small group of useful verbs deeply is better than memorizing long lists. Verbs like do, make, go, get, have, take, and feel appear everywhere in real conversation. Mastering these verbs builds real speaking power. Common beginner verb errors usually come from translating directly from another language or from trying to speak too fast without confidence. Learners may forget verb endings, choose the wrong verb, or avoid verbs altogether. These mistakes are normal. They are signs of learning, not failure. The goal is not to eliminate mistakes instantly, but to understand verbs well enough that correction becomes easier over time. Verbs also have a close relationship with nouns. Together, they create meaning. A noun without a verb feels incomplete, and a verb without a noun often feels unclear. Eat alone is not enough. Eat food completes the idea. Build becomes clear when paired with a house. This relationship helps learners build sentences naturally. Start with a noun, add a verb, and meaning appears. Simple sentence expansion is a powerful confidence tool. You can begin with a short sentence and gently add detail. I work becomes I work at home. She studies becomes she studies English every evening. The verb remains the heart of the sentence while other words support it. This method helps learners grow without feeling overwhelmed. As you build confidence with verbs, something important happens. You stop worrying so much about grammar and start focusing on message. You trust yourself to choose a verb and move forward. That trust is the beginning of fluency. Verbs are not obstacles, they are bridges between thought and expression. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. Verbs are the energy of English. When you understand them, English moves with you instead of against you. You do not need to rush. You do not need to be perfect. Just notice verbs in your daily life, listen for them in conversation, and use them bravely. With time and awareness, verbs will become natural, and your English will begin to feel alive and powerful. Chapter 6: Verb Forms. For many English learners, verb forms are the moment when confidence begins to shake. You may hear words like base form, past form, participle, or irregular, and suddenly English feels heavy again. But here is the truth that often gets missed. Verb forms are not enemies. They are simply different ways the same verb shows meaning. English does not change verbs to confuse you, it changes them to be clear. Once you understand that, fear begins to fade. Every verb in English starts with its base form. This is the most neutral, relaxed form of the verb. Words like eat, go, work, learn, and speak are all base forms. This form does not tell us about time by itself. It is flexible and ready to be used in many situations. You see base forms after words like to, and you hear them in simple statements like I eat breakfast early or they work here. The base form is the starting point, not something complicated. The past form of a verb tells us that an action happened before now. English likes to be clear about time, and verb forms help with that clarity. For many verbs, the past form is created by adding a simple ending. Worked, learned, played, and watched are all examples. These are called regular verbs, not because they are boring, but because they follow a clear pattern. Once you understand the pattern, your brain relaxes because it knows what to expect. Some verbs do not follow this pattern, and these are called irregular verbs. Words like went, ate, saw, took, and made belong here. Beginners often feel stressed about irregular verbs because they look unpredictable. But remember this, these verbs are very common, which means you hear them often. And when you hear something often, your brain remembers it naturally. Native speakers do not memorize lists either. They learn through repetition and use. You can do the same. The past participle is another form that sometimes sounds frightening, but it does not need to be. The past participle is usually the same as the past form for regular verbs, like worked or played. For irregular verbs, it may look different, like eaten, seen, or taken. This form is often used with helping verbs such as have, has, or had. Sentences like, I have finished, or she has gone sound natural, because the verb form works together with the helper to show meaning clearly. The present participle is the verb form that ends in ing. Words like working, learning, eating, and speaking fall into this category. This form is used to show actions that are happening now, temporary situations, or ongoing activity. When you say, I am learning English, the ing form shows that the action is active and continuing. This form is also used as a noun or adjective in some situations, which shows how flexible English can be. In real life, verb forms appear naturally and quietly. You hear them when people talk about yesterday, today, or tomorrow. You hear them when someone explains experience or describes a process. Native speakers do not stop to name the form they are using. They feel the meaning and choose the form that matches it. This is an important idea. Verb forms are chosen by meaning first, not by grammar labels. This is why native speakers seem to choose verb forms automatically. Their brains connect time, situation, and meaning without conscious effort. They are not asking themselves which rule to apply. They are simply expressing an idea. The good news is that learners can develop this same ability through exposure and calm practice. You do not need to force it, you need to allow it. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is trying to memorize verb forms without context. Memorization creates pressure, and pressure blocks learning. Instead of memorizing lists, focus on noticing patterns in real sentences. Listen to how people talk about the past. Notice how ing forms appear in ongoing actions. See how helping verbs support meaning. This kind of noticing builds understanding gently. Sentence comparison is a powerful tool here. When you see sentences like, I work, I worked, I am working, and I have worked, do not panic. These sentences are not fighting each other. They are simply showing different moments and perspectives. The verb changes slightly, but the core meaning stays the same. Understanding this reduces fear and builds confidence. Practical thinking patterns help even more. Instead of asking yourself which form is correct, ask simple questions. Is this about now, before now, or ongoing? Is the action finished or still happening? These questions guide your choice naturally. English responds well to clear thinking, not fast thinking. As we come to the end of this chapter, remember this. Verb forms are not tests, they are tools. They help you show time, experience, and action clearly. You do not need to master everything today, you only need to become familiar. Familiarity grows through calm exposure, real examples, and patience with yourself. English does not expect perfection from you. It responds to effort and understanding. The more you relax with verb forms, the more naturally they will come. Trust the process. Trust your ability to learn. Verb forms will stop feeling like obstacles and start feeling like helpful friends that support your message and strengthen your English voice. Chapter 7. Helping Verbs. At this point in your English journey, you already know that nouns give English something to talk about and verbs give English movement. Now it is time to meet a special group of verbs that quietly support everything else. These are called helping verbs. Their job is exactly what the name suggests. They help, they do not carry the main meaning of the sentence, but they make the meaning clearer, smoother, and more accurate. Once you understand helping verbs, English starts to feel organized instead of confusing. Helping verbs exist because English likes clarity. Sometimes one main verb is not enough to show time, mood, possibility, or intention. That is when a helping verb steps in. It works together with the main verb like a teammate, not a boss. The main verb still carries the action or idea, and the helping verb simply supports it. This teamwork is one of the reasons English can express meaning so precisely without sounding heavy. The three most important helping verbs in English are be, do, and have. These verbs appear everywhere, which is why beginners often feel unsure about them. But once you see their purpose, they stop feeling difficult. The verb be helps us describe states, conditions, and ongoing actions. Sentences like, I am tired, she is learning, or they are ready all use be to show how something exists or is happening. Be connects the subject to information about itself. The verb do is used to build questions, negatives, and emphasis. It does not usually add meaning by itself, but it helps the sentence work smoothly. When you ask, do you understand? The verb do makes the question possible. When you say, I do not know, it helps create the negative. In spoken English, do can also add emphasis, as in, I do want to learn, which shows feeling and intention. Understanding do helps learners feel more confident asking questions and correcting themselves. The verb have helps us talk about experience, completion, and connection to the present. Sentences like, I have finished, she has learned a lot, or they have seen this before all use, have to show that something is connected to now, even if it happened earlier. This idea feels abstract at first, but in real life it is very natural. We often care about what experience we carry with us, not just what happened in the past. Modal verbs are another group of helping verbs that shape meaning in powerful ways. Words like can, will, must, and should do not show action by themselves. They show possibility, ability, intention, necessity, or advice. When you say, I can speak English, you are talking about ability. When you say, I will try, you are showing intention. When you say, "You must listen carefully," the tone becomes strong and serious. When you say, "You should practice daily," the tone becomes gentle and supportive. This is one of the most beautiful things about modal verbs. They change tone as much as meaning. English speakers choose modals carefully because they affect how a sentence feels emotionally. A small change in the helping verb can make a sentence sound polite, strong, kind, or firm. This is why learning modals is not just about grammar, it is about communication and respect. Helping verbs play a very important role in questions. In English, many questions are formed by moving the helping verb to the front of the sentence. "You are ready" becomes "Are you ready?" "She can come" becomes "Can she come?" This structure is consistent and logical. Once learners see the pattern, questions stop feeling scary and start feeling predictable. Helping verbs are also essential for negatives. English usually uses helping verbs to say no or not. "I like it" becomes "I do not like it." "She is working" becomes "She is not working." The helping verb carries the negative, which keeps the main verb clean and clear. This structure helps English stay organized. In real-life speaking, helping verbs appear constantly, often in short, relaxed forms. Native speakers say, "I'm," "your," "she's," "don't," "can't," and "won't" without thinking. These forms are not lazy English. They are natural spoken English. Listening for these patterns helps learners understand conversations more easily and speak more smoothly. Common learner mistakes with helping verbs usually come from overthinking or translating directly from another language. Learners may forget to use a helping verb in questions or negatives, or they may use two main verbs together by mistake. These errors are normal and temporary. They show that the learner is trying to build sentences, which is a good sign. Sentence transformation is a powerful way to practice helping verbs. When you take a simple sentence and turn it into a question or a negative, you begin to see how helping verbs work. "She works here" becomes "Does she work here?" and "She does not work here." The meaning stays clear, and the structure becomes familiar. This kind of practice builds confidence quickly. As we close this chapter, take a deep breath and remember this. Helping verbs are not extra rules to memorize. They are friendly support tools that help English express meaning clearly and politely. You do not need to master them all at once. You only need to recognize them, listen for them, and begin using them naturally. Confidence with helping verbs grows quietly. Each time you ask a question, form a negative, or express intention, you are using them successfully. Trust yourself. English is not trying to trick you, it is trying to help you communicate. And with helping verbs on your side, your English will start to feel stronger, smoother, and more natural every day. Chapter 8. Adjectives. If nouns give English something to talk about, and verbs give English movement, then adjectives give English color. Adjectives are the words that help listeners see, feel, and understand more clearly. Without adjectives, English would sound flat and empty. With adjectives, language becomes vivid, emotional, and personal. This is why adjectives matter so much, especially for learners who want to sound natural and expressive instead of robotic. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. That description can be about size, color, shape, quality, feeling, or opinion. When you say a book, the listener knows very little. But when you say a helpful book, a boring book, or a small book, suddenly the meaning changes. The noun stays the same, but the adjective adds life. Adjectives do not change the basic meaning of a sentence, they deepen it. In English, adjectives usually appear in very clear and predictable positions. One common position is before the noun. This is the most familiar pattern for beginners. Sentences like a good teacher, a long day, or an interesting story feel natural because English likes to prepare the listener before naming the thing. The adjective comes first, the noun follows, and the picture forms smoothly in the listener's mind. Another common position for adjectives is after certain verbs. These verbs do not show action. They connect the subject to information about itself. Verbs like be, seem, feel, look, sound, and become often work this way. When you say, I am tired, she feels confident, or the lesson seems easy. The adjective comes after the verb because it describes the subject, not the action. This structure is very common in spoken English and helps learners express feelings naturally. Adjectives also allow us to compare things, which is a natural part of communication. Even beginners compare without thinking. When you say something is better, bigger, or easier, you are already using comparative adjectives. When you say something is the best, the biggest, or the easiest, you are using superlative adjectives. At this stage, you do not need to master every rule. The important idea is that English uses adjectives to show difference and degree, not just description. Emotional adjectives deserve special attention because they help you express how you feel. Words like happy, nervous, excited, frustrated, calm, and proud appear constantly in real conversation. These adjectives connect language to emotion, which is why they are so powerful. When learners can describe how they feel, English stops being a school subject and starts becoming a personal tool. It is also helpful to notice the difference between physical adjectives and opinion adjectives. Physical adjectives describe what something is like in the real world. Big, small, heavy, light, hot, cold, and noisy fall into this category. Opinion adjectives describe how someone feels about something. Interesting, boring, beautiful, difficult, and useful belong here. English often places opinion adjectives before physical ones because feelings usually come before facts in communication. This order feels natural to native speakers, even if they never think about the rule. Many beginners make small mistakes with adjectives, and that is completely normal. One common mistake is using an adjective where an adverb is needed, or adding extra endings that English does not use. Another mistake is placing adjectives in unnatural positions because of direct translation from another language. These mistakes are not signs of failure. They are signs that the learner is experimenting with expression, which is a healthy stage of learning. English also has a natural order for adjectives when more than one appears before a noun. This may sound advanced, but it becomes intuitive with exposure. Native speakers naturally say a beautiful small house instead of a small beautiful house, not because they memorized a rule, but because it sounds right. Learners do not need to memorize the full order. Listening and noticing is enough. Your ear will learn faster than your memory. Adjectives are especially important for speaking fluently because they allow you to add detail without adding complexity. Instead of creating long explanations, You can choose one strong adjective. The movie was confusing communicates more clearly than a long explanation. This efficiency makes speaking feel easier and more confident. When you speak, adjectives help you slow down naturally. They give you thinking space and make your sentences sound complete. You can start with a simple noun and verb, then add an adjective when you feel ready. The lesson was pause, think, helpful. This kind of speaking is natural and calm. There is no rush, and there is no pressure to be perfect. As you practice adjectives, focus on awareness, not accuracy. Notice how people describe things. Notice which adjectives appear again and again. Try using a few familiar adjectives in your daily speech. Do not aim for fancy words, aim for clear ones. Clear English always sounds confident. As we close this chapter, remember this. Adjectives are not decoration, they are connection. They help your listener understand not just what you are talking about, but how you feel about it. When you use adjectives comfortably, your English becomes warmer, more human, and more expressive. Take your time. Add color slowly. With each adjective you use, you are not just building sentences, you are building a voice in English that sounds like you. Chapter 9. Adverbs. As your English begins to grow, you may notice that sometimes a sentence feels complete, but still a little empty. You know who did something and what happened, yet something is missing. That missing piece is often an adverb. Adverbs are the words that shape meaning, time, feeling, and intensity. They do not change what happened, but they change how we understand what happened. This is why adverbs are so powerful. They quietly guide the listener's imagination and help English feel precise and alive. An adverb is a word that modifies or adds information to a verb, an adjective, or even another adverb. In simple terms, adverbs answer questions like how, when, where, how often, and to what degree. When you say she speaks, the sentence is clear. But when you say she speaks clearly, the listener understands more. The action stays the same, but the meaning becomes sharper. Adverbs do not replace verbs or adjectives, they support them. There are several common types of adverbs that appear constantly in daily English. Adverbs of time tell us when something happens. Words like today, yesterday, now, soon, and already help place actions on a timeline. Adverbs of manner tell us how something happens. Carefully, quickly, slowly, and easily fall into this group. Adverbs of place tell us where something happens, using words like here, there, outside, and nearby. Adverbs of frequency tell us how often something happens, such as always, usually, sometimes, rarely, and never. These four groups alone can dramatically improve clarity in speaking. One of the most common confusion points for learners is the difference between adverbs and adjectives. This confusion is natural and shared by many beginners. Adjectives describe nouns, adverbs usually describe verbs. When you say she is quiet, quiet is an adjective because it describes a person. When you say she speaks quietly, quietly is an adverb because it describes how the action happens. The meaning changes depending on what the word is describing. Focusing on meaning instead of labels helps this difference become clear. Many adverbs in English are formed by adding ly to adjectives. Slow becomes slowly, careful becomes carefully, and clear becomes clearly. This pattern is helpful, but it is not perfect or universal. Some adverbs do not use ly at all, such as fast, well, and hard. This does not mean English is illogical, it simply means language grows naturally, not mathematically. Listening and exposure help learners recognize these patterns without stress. Adverb placement often worries learners, but English is more flexible than it seems. Adverbs of frequency usually appear before the main verb, while adverbs of manner often appear after the verb or object. Adverbs of time and place often appear at the beginning or end of a sentence. These are tendencies, not strict laws. In real speech, clarity and rhythm matter more than perfect placement. If your meaning is clear, your English is working. In spoken English, adverbs help speakers sound natural and thoughtful. Native speakers use adverbs to soften statements, show attitude, or manage conversation. Words like really, actually, probably, and maybe appear constantly. These adverbs help speakers sound human instead of mechanical. Learning a small group of common adverbs deeply is more useful than memorizing long lists. Adverbs can completely change meaning. She answered feels neutral. She answered quickly suggests confidence or urgency. She answered slowly suggests hesitation or thought. The action is the same, but the feeling is different. This is why adverbs are emotional tools as much as grammatical ones. They help listeners feel the situation, not just understand it. Adverbs also influence sentence rhythm. They create natural pauses and emphasis. In spoken English, adverbs often give speakers time to think while keeping the sentence alive. Saying "I usually wake up early" flows more smoothly than stopping suddenly. Adverbs help your speech breathe. Practice with adverbs does not need to be complicated. Start by adding one adverb to a sentence you already know. I study English becomes I study English daily. She speaks becomes she speaks confidently. These small additions build expressive power without pressure. Over time, your sentences will naturally grow richer. As you practice, focus on listening as much as speaking. Notice where native speakers place adverbs. Notice how often they use simple adverbs instead of complex ones. You will see that clear English is not about big words, it is about precise ones. As we close this chapter, remember this. Adverbs are not extra decoration, they are guides. They guide meaning, emotion, and rhythm. When you use adverbs comfortably, your English becomes clearer and more human. You do not need to use many, you only need to use the right ones. Take your time with them, experiment gently, let your sentences grow naturally. With each adverb you add, you are not just improving grammar, you are improving communication, and that is the real goal of learning English. Chapter 10. Prepositions. For many English learners, prepositions are one of the most feared parts of the language. Words like in, on, at, to, from, with, and by often feel small but powerful in a confusing way. Learners ask themselves why one preposition is correct and another feels wrong, and sometimes there seems to be no clear answer. But the fear around prepositions does not come from difficulty, it comes from the way they are taught. When prepositions are explained as rules to memorize, they feel heavy. When they are explained as pictures and relationships, they suddenly make sense. Prepositions are words that show relationships. They connect one thing to another and help us understand where something is, when something happens, or how something moves. They do not carry the main meaning of a sentence, but they guide the listener's understanding. When you say the book is on the table, the preposition on creates a picture in the listener's mind. Without that word, the sentence would feel incomplete. Prepositions are small, but they are deeply visual. One of the most helpful ways to understand prepositions is to group them by meaning. Many prepositions are used to talk about place. Words like in, on, under, behind, near, and between help us describe location. When you say the keys are in the bag or the chair is near the window, you are helping the listener imagine space. Other prepositions are used to talk about time. Words like at, on, in, before, and after help place events on a timeline. At night, on Monday, and in the morning are common examples that appear constantly in daily English. Prepositions also show movement. Words like to, from, into, out of, and through describe direction and change of position. When you say she walked into the room or they came from work, the preposition helps the listener follow the motion. These movement prepositions are especially important in storytelling and daily conversation because they make actions feel real and clear. You hear prepositions everywhere in daily life. They appear in simple phrases like at, home, on the phone, in the car, and with friends. These phrases are so common that native speakers never think about them. They feel natural because they match how English sees relationships. Learners sometimes try to translate prepositions directly from their first language, but this often creates confusion because languages do not see space and time in exactly the same way. This is not a weakness, it is simply a difference. This is why prepositions often feel hard. They are not about logic in the traditional sense, they are about perspective. English chooses prepositions based on how it imagines situations. For example, English sees time like a container. That is why we say in the morning or in the future. English sees days like surfaces. That is why we say on Monday. These choices may feel strange at first, but when you think in pictures, they become easier to accept. Thinking in pictures instead of rules is the key to mastering prepositions. Instead of asking yourself which preposition is correct, try to imagine the situation. Where is the object? How is it connected to the other object? Is it inside something, touching something, or simply near something? Your brain understands images faster than rules, and English works well with this kind of thinking. Prepositions also appear naturally in questions. When you ask, "Where are you from?" or "Who are you talking to?" the preposition often comes at the end of the sentence. This structure can feel unusual for learners, but it is very common in spoken English. Native speakers use it without hesitation, and learners can learn to do the same by listening and practicing without fear. Common learner mistakes with prepositions usually come from overthinking or trying to be perfect. Learners may avoid speaking because they are afraid of choosing the wrong preposition. Others may use one preposition for everything, hoping it will work. Both reactions are understandable. The solution is not pressure, but exposure. The more you hear correct prepositions in real sentences, the more familiar they become. In spoken English, prepositions are often short, unstressed, and relaxed. Native speakers do not say them loudly or clearly on purpose. They flow naturally with the sentence. This is why learners sometimes miss them when listening. Paying attention to small words is an important listening skill. Once you start noticing prepositions, your understanding of spoken English improves quickly. A healthy practice mindset with prepositions is curiosity, not control. Do not try to master all prepositions at once. Start with the most common ones. Notice how they are used in everyday phrases. Repeat those phrases as complete units instead of separating the words. Saying at home or on time as one piece helps your brain store them naturally. As we reach the end of this chapter, take a moment to let go of fear. Prepositions are not traps, they are guides. They guide the listener through space, time, and movement. You do not need to be perfect to be understood. Even native speakers sometimes choose different prepositions depending on context, style, or region. English does not expect you to know everything immediately. It responds to patience and awareness. Each time you hear a preposition and understand it a little more clearly, you are making progress. Trust that progress. Keep thinking in pictures. Keep listening carefully. With time, prepositions will stop feeling confusing and start feeling familiar, and your English will feel calmer, clearer, and more confident. Chapter 11: Conjunctions. As you continue building your English, you may notice something interesting. You can make simple sentences and people understand you, but sometimes your speech feels short, choppy, or unfinished. You say one idea, then stop. You say another idea, then stop again. Nothing is wrong with your English, but it feels disconnected. This is exactly where conjunctions step in. Conjunctions are the words that help ideas hold hands. They connect thoughts so English can flow naturally instead of sounding broken. In very simple terms, conjunctions connect words, phrases, or sentences. They show how ideas are related. Without conjunctions, English would sound like a list instead of a conversation. Imagine saying, I woke up, I felt tired, I went to work, I came home. The meaning is clear, but the rhythm feels flat. When you add conjunctions, English becomes smoother and more human. I woke up and felt tired, so I went to work, but I came home early. Suddenly, the story feels alive. Sentences often feel broken without conjunctions because the listener has to work harder to understand the connection between ideas. English prefers clarity and flow. Conjunctions help the listener relax because the relationship between ideas is clear. Are the ideas adding information, showing contrast, giving a choice, or explaining a result? One small word can answer that question instantly. The most common conjunctions in English are called coordinating conjunctions. These include and, but, or so yet, for, and nor. You do not need to memorize this group as grammar. You only need to understand how each one feels. The word and adds information. It joins ideas that move in the same direction. I like coffee and I like tea feels natural because both ideas support each other. The word but shows contrast. It tells the listener that the second idea is different or unexpected. I like coffee, but I do not drink it at night. Sounds balanced because but prepares the listener for change. The word or gives a choice. Do you want tea or coffee feels open and polite. The word so shows result or reason. I was tired, so I went to bed early. Helps the listener understand cause and effect. The word yet is similar to but but it often feels a little softer or more expressive. She was tired, yet she continued, carries emotion and strength. The word for explains reason in a quieter, more formal way, as in, he stayed home for he was sick. The word nor is less common in daily speech, but it appears in careful or formal English, often after a negative idea. Even if you do not use all of these immediately, recognizing them helps you understand English better. Each conjunction changes meaning even when the sentences stay the same. I wanted to go and I stayed home feels very different from I wanted to go but I stayed home. The action did not change, but the feeling did. This is why conjunctions are not just grammar tools, they are meaning tools. They guide emotion, expectation, and understanding. One of the most powerful uses of conjunctions is connecting short sentences smoothly. Beginners often think long sentences are advanced, but English fluency is not about length. It is about connection. Joining two short sentences with a simple conjunction often sounds more natural than forcing one long sentence. I studied. I felt confident becomes I studied and I felt confident. This small change makes your English sound calmer and more fluent. There is also an important difference between spoken English and written English when it comes to conjunctions. In spoken English, people often start sentences with conjunctions like and or but. This is completely natural and very common. And then I realized something or but I was not ready sounds conversational and relaxed. In formal writing, conjunctions are used more carefully, but in speaking, flow matters more than rules. Common learner mistakes with conjunctions usually come from overuse or avoidance. Some learners connect everything with and because it feels safe. Others avoid conjunctions because they are afraid of choosing the wrong one. Both reactions are understandable. The solution is awareness. Listen to how native speakers vary conjunctions to match meaning. You will notice that they choose based on feeling, not grammar labels. Improving sentence flow does not require many conjunctions. Even one well-chosen conjunction can change how your English sounds. Instead of adding more words, choose better connections. This makes your speech clearer and easier to follow. English listeners appreciate clarity more than complexity. Real-life conversation is full of conjunctions. People use them to explain, correct themselves, add detail, or show contrast. Phrases like, and then, but actually, or maybe, and so that's why appear constantly. These are not advanced expressions, they are everyday English. Learning to hear them is just as important as learning to use them. A calm practice mindset is essential here. Do not try to use every conjunction at once. Start with and, but, and so. These three alone can dramatically improve your English flow. Use them in short sentences. Listen to how they feel. Confidence grows through comfort, not pressure. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. Conjunctions are bridges. They help your ideas move from one place to another without falling apart. You do not need perfect grammar to communicate well. You need connection. Each time you use a conjunction naturally, your English becomes smoother, clearer, and more confident. Take your time. Let your ideas connect gently. English is not a race, it is a conversation. And conjunctions help that conversation flow. As Chapter 12, Subordinators. As your English grows stronger, you naturally want to explain more than just what happened. You want to explain why it happened, when it happened, under what condition it happened, or even why something happened despite another fact. This is where subordinators quietly enter your English. They help you move from simple statements to thoughtful explanations without making your sentences heavy or confusing. When learners understand subordinators, English starts to feel deeper, calmer, and more intelligent. Subordinating conjunctions are words that connect a main idea with supporting information. In very simple terms, they help one part of a sentence depend on another part. That may sound serious, but the idea is gentle. One part of the sentence carries the main message, and the other part gives extra context. Words like because, when, while, if, and although are some of the most common subordinators in English, and you already hear them every day in real conversations. The word because helps explain reason. It answers the question why. When you say, I stayed home because I was tired, you are not adding complexity. You are adding clarity. The main idea is that you stayed home. The reason follows naturally. This kind of sentence feels complete and satisfying to the listener because it explains thought and action together. English values this kind of clear thinking. The word when connects actions to time. I felt nervous when I started speaking English tells us not only what happened, but also at what moment it happened. The word while often shows two actions happening at the same time, or shows contrast in a gentle way. She was listening while he was speaking, paints a picture of shared time. These words help English feel smooth and descriptive without effort. The word if introduces conditions. It opens the door to possibilities. If you practice daily, you will improve feels encouraging and logical. It does not force meaning, it suggests it. This is why if is very common in advice, planning, and everyday thinking. The word although shows contrast with balance. Although I was afraid, I tried sounds strong and thoughtful. It shows honesty without stopping progress. Many learners feel nervous when they hear terms like main clause and dependent clause. But there is no need for fear. A main clause is simply the part of the sentence that can stand alone. It makes sense by itself. A dependent clause needs help. It cannot stand alone because it begins with a word like because or when. Think of the dependent clause as background music. It supports the main idea but does not replace it. Understanding this difference helps learners build better sentences without confusion. You do not need to label clauses while speaking. You only need to feel which idea is the most important. English sentences become easier when you focus on meaning instead of structure names. The position of a subordinator in a sentence can change the rhythm, but not the core meaning. I stayed calm because I practiced, and because I practiced, I stayed calm both work. One starts with the result, The other starts with the reason. English allows this flexibility. In spoken English, people often choose the order that feels natural in the moment. This freedom helps communication feel human, not mechanical. Natural spoken sentence building with subordinators usually starts simple. Native speakers do not create long, complicated sentences unless they need to. They often use one subordinator at a time. I left early because I was tired. That is enough. Learners should not try to sound advanced by stacking many ideas together. Clear English is confident English. Cause and effect thinking is at the heart of subordinators. English speakers like to explain logic. They like to show connection between actions and reasons. This is why words like because and if are so common. They allow the speaker to guide the listener's understanding gently. When learners begin thinking in cause and effect, sentence building becomes much easier. One common mistake learners make is creating very long sentences with too many ideas. This often happens when learners try to show everything they know at once. The result is confusion, not clarity. Subordinators are meant to simplify, not complicate. One clear idea with one clear reason is powerful. More can come later. Everyday conversation is full of subordinators, even in casual speech. People say things like, I was late because of traffic, call me when you arrive, I listen to music while I work, and I will help if I can. These sentences are not formal or advanced. They are natural English. Recognizing them helps learners feel that subordinators are friendly tools, not grammar traps. Sentence comparison is a helpful way to build confidence. Compare I was tired, I stayed home with I stayed home because I was tired. Both are correct, but the second feels smoother and more complete. English rewards connection. Small improvements like this create big changes in how your English sounds. As you practice, remember that you do not need to use every subordinator. Start with because, when, and if. These three alone can help you express reason, time, and condition clearly. Use them slowly. Listen to how they sound. Confidence grows when your sentences feel natural to you. As we close this chapter, take a moment to appreciate your progress. You are no longer just making statements, you are explaining, connecting, and thinking in English. Subordinators are signs of growth, not difficulty. They show that you are ready to express deeper meaning. Trust yourself. Keep your sentences clear. Let ideas connect gently. English is not asking you to be perfect, it is inviting you to be understood. And with subordinators, your English becomes calmer, clearer, and more confident every day. Chapter 13, Interjections. As your English becomes stronger, something important begins to happen. You no longer want to speak only correctly. You want to speak naturally. You want your English to sound alive, emotional, and real, just like the English you hear in movies, conversations, and daily life. This is where interjections quietly enter the picture. Interjections are the small expressions that carry big emotion. They may seem simple, but they are powerful because they show how a speaker feels in the moment. Interjections express emotion, reaction, or sudden feeling. They are the words and sounds people use when something surprises them, excites them, frustrates them or makes them think. Words like oh, wow, hey, ah, oops, and well are all interjections. Sometimes they are full words, and sometimes they are just sounds. What matters is not their grammar, but their feeling. Interjections are not about structure, they are about expression. One interesting thing about interjections is that they often sound more like emotion than language. Sounds like um, ah, and appear constantly in spoken English. These sounds are not mistakes, they are natural thinking signals. When someone says, let me think, they are not speaking badly. They are giving themselves time. Interjections like these help conversation flow smoothly instead of feeling rushed or unnatural. Interjections play a huge role in emotional tone. The same sentence can feel very different depending on the interjection that comes before it. Saying, oh, that's nice, feels gentle and thoughtful. Saying, wow, that's nice, feels excited and impressed. Saying, that's nice, feels uncertain or thoughtful. The words may be the same, but the emotion changes completely. This is why interjections are emotional tools, not grammar tools. It is also important to understand the difference between formal and informal interjections. In daily conversation, people use informal interjections freely. Words like hey, yeah, wow, and oh appear naturally and often. In more formal situations, such as presentations or professional writing, interjections are used less or chosen more carefully. This does not mean interjections are wrong, it simply means English adjusts expression based on situation. In real conversations, interjections appear everywhere. People use them to react, to show interest, to agree, to hesitate, or to soften what they are saying. Phrases like, oh, I see, well, maybe, ah, that makes sense, and oops, my mistake are extremely common. These expressions make English feel polite, human, and flexible. Without them, speech can sound cold or overly direct. Cultural awareness is very important when using interjections. Some interjections are universal, while others are culture-specific. For example, saying hey to a friend feels friendly, but saying it in a very formal meeting may feel too casual. Learning when to use interjections is just as important as learning how to use them. Listening carefully to real conversations helps build this awareness naturally. Many beginners either avoid interjections completely or overuse them. Avoiding them can make English sound stiff and unnatural. Overusing them can make speech sound exaggerated or unclear. The goal is balance. Interjections should appear naturally, not constantly. They support speech, but they do not replace clear sentences. When learners relax and listen more, balance comes naturally. Punctuation with interjections is simple and flexible. In writing, interjections are often followed by commas or exclamation marks, depending on emotion. Oh, I didn't know feels calm. Oh, feels surprised. Beginners do not need to worry too much about punctuation at this stage. In speaking, tone and pause matter far more than punctuation rules. Interjections also help create natural speaking rhythm. They give speakers time to think and listeners time to react. When someone says, "Well, let me explain," the word "well" prepares the listener. It signals that more information is coming. These small signals make conversations smoother and more comfortable for everyone involved. One of the most beautiful things about interjections is that they give learners permission to express themselves freely. You do not need perfect grammar to say, "oh," "irk," or "wow." These expressions allow you to participate emotionally, even when your sentence skills are still growing. This builds confidence quickly and helps learners feel included in conversation. As you practice English, allow yourself to notice interjections instead of fearing them. Listen to how native speakers react to stories, mistakes, and surprises. Notice how often interjections appear before sentences, not inside them. Try using one or two naturally without forcing them. As we close this chapter, remember this important idea. Interjections are signs of comfort in a language. When you use them naturally, it means you are not just translating words, you are feeling English. That is a powerful step forward. Do not hold back your expression. English is not meant to be silent or emotionless. It is meant to connect people. Interjections help that connection happen quickly and honestly. Trust your feelings. Let your voice react. With time, your English will not only sound correct, it will sound alive. Chapter 14. Articles. For many English learners, just 3 small words create a surprisingly big amount of stress. Those words are a, an, and the. Learners often feel that no matter how much English they know, articles still appear unpredictable and confusing. This fear is very common, and it does not mean you are bad at English. It simply means articles have not been explained in a calm and logical way. In this chapter, we will remove that fear and replace it with understanding. Articles exist because English likes to guide the listener's attention. English wants to show whether something is new or already known, general or specific, one of many or one special thing. Articles are not random decorations, they are signals. Once you understand what they are signaling, articles begin to feel helpful instead of stressful. Let us start with a and an. These two words have one main job. They introduce something new, something not yet known to the listener. When you say, "I saw a cat," you are not talking about a specific cat that both of you already know. You are simply saying that one cat appeared. The difference between a and an is not meaning but sound. English uses a before words that begin with a consonant sound and an before words that begin with a vowel sound. This is about pronunciation comfort, not spelling. English wants speech to flow smoothly. Understanding this sound logic removes much confusion. We say a book, a car, and a teacher because the words begin with consonant sounds. We say an apple, an idea, and an hour because the sound at the beginning is a vowel sound, even when the spelling looks different. Once you focus on sound instead of letters, a and an become much easier to use naturally. The article "the" works differently. It points to something specific, something both the speaker and listener can identify. When you say "the book," you are not talking about any book. You are talking about one particular book that is already clear in the situation. The listener knows which book you mean because of context, shared experience, or earlier mention. "The" is about shared understanding. This is why articles change meaning even when the noun stays the same. I need a phone suggests any phone will do. I need the phone suggests one specific phone, maybe your phone or a phone already discussed. English uses articles to guide meaning gently without long explanations. This is a powerful feature of the language. Sometimes English uses no article at all, and this often confuses learners the most. But again, there is logic here. English often drops articles when speaking about things in general. When you say, books are important or water is essential, you are talking about these things in a broad, general way. You are not pointing to one book or one glass of water, you are talking about the idea as a whole. No article is needed because the meaning is wide and open. Articles also disappear with many uncountable nouns when speaking generally. I like music and she drinks coffee sound natural, because music and coffee are not seen as individual items in these sentences. English does not feel the need to guide attention when the meaning is already general. This is not a mistake, it is a choice based on meaning. In daily speaking, articles are often small and unstressed. Native speakers say them quickly and softly, which is why learners sometimes miss them when listening. But even when articles are not heard clearly, their meaning is felt. Over time, as learners listen more, articles begin to feel right or wrong by instinct, not rule. One common learner confusion is trying to apply one article rule everywhere. Learners may ask, should I always use the or should I always use a? The answer is no. English chooses articles based on how the speaker sees the noun in that moment. Is it new or known, general or specific, one of many or one clear thing? These questions guide article choice naturally. Another common mistake is worrying too much about being perfect. Articles are important, but they are rarely the reason communication fails. Native speakers understand learners even when articles are missing or incorrect. The goal is progress, not perfection. Understanding comes first, accuracy follows later. A very helpful way to understand articles is visual thinking. Imagine a room full of objects. When you say a, you are pointing to something new in the room. When you say the, you are pointing to something both people are already looking at. When you use no article, you are not pointing at all. You are talking about the idea in general. This mental picture makes articles much easier to choose. Sentence comparison helps build confidence. She bought a dress feels different from she bought the dress. I like a coffee sounds strange, but I like coffee sounds natural. These comparisons train your ear and your intuition. Over time, you will feel article use instead of calculating it. As we close this chapter, take a moment to breathe. Articles are not traps, they are gentle guides. You do not need to master them in one day, you only need to notice them and understand their purpose. English does not expect perfection from learners. It responds to patience and awareness. A calm mastery mindset is the key. Each time you hear or use an article, you are learning. Each time you notice meaning change, you are growing. Trust that process. With time, a, an, and the will stop feeling like enemies and start feeling like quiet helpers that make your English clearer, calmer, and more confident. Chapter 15. Determiners. As your English continues to grow, you may notice something subtle but important happening in your sentences. You know the noun you want to talk about, but you also want to be clear about which noun, how much of it, or whose it is. This is where determiners quietly do their work. Determiners are small words, but they carry a lot of responsibility. They help listeners understand exactly what you mean without asking questions. When determiners are used well, English sounds precise, calm, and confident. Determiners exist to limit or clarify nouns. They come before nouns and tell us things like which one, whose one, or how many. Without determiners, English can feel vague or unfinished. Saying book is interesting feels incomplete, but saying this book is interesting or my book is interesting feels clear and natural. Determiners guide attention, just like a gentle finger pointing to the right idea. One group of determiners you already know very well includes this, that, these, and those. These words help us show distance and number. This and these are used for things that feel close, either physically or emotionally. That and those are used for things that feel farther away. When you say this idea is important, you are bringing the listener close to the idea. When you say that idea was confusing, you are creating a little distance. English uses these words not only for space, but also for feeling and emphasis. Another very important group of determiners shows possession. Words like my, your, his, her, its, our, and their help us connect nouns to people. Possessive determiners are extremely common in daily English because people talk about their lives, their families, and their things all the time. Saying my phone, her job, or their house feels natural and personal. These determiners help English sound warm and human instead of cold and distant. Quantifying determiners like some, any, much, and many help us talk about amount. These words are especially useful because they allow us to speak without exact numbers. In real life, we often do not count everything. We estimate. Sometime, any questions, much effort, and many people are all examples of English choosing flexibility over precision. Understanding how these words work helps learners speak more naturally. Choosing the correct determiner becomes much easier when you focus on meaning instead of rules. Ask yourself simple questions. Am I talking about something close or far? Am I talking about ownership? Am I talking about a general amount or a large number? English responds well to clear thinking. When your intention is clear, the determiner often feels obvious. In spoken English, determiners are usually quick and unstressed. Native speakers do not say them loudly. They flow smoothly with a noun. This is why learners sometimes miss them when listening. But even when they are not heard clearly, their meaning is still felt. With time and exposure, your ear will begin to catch these patterns naturally. Common learner mistakes with determiners often come from translation. Some languages do not use determiners the same way English does, so learners may skip them or use too many. Others may confuse determiners with adjectives. While both appear before nouns, they do different jobs. Adjectives describe what something is like. Determiners clarify which one or how much. A big house uses an adjective. That house uses a determiner. Understanding this difference helps sentences feel balanced. Another common mistake is stacking too many determiners together. English usually allows only one main determiner before a noun. Saying my this book does not work, even though the meaning may feel logical to a learner. English prefers one clear signal at a time. This keeps sentences simple and easy to follow. Practical sentence building with determiners is one of the best ways to gain confidence. Start with a noun you already know. Add one determiner. Book becomes this book. Idea becomes my idea. People becomes many people. Notice how the sentence immediately feels clearer. You do not need to add more words, the determiner does the work for you. As you practice, listen carefully to real conversations. Notice how often people use determiners without thinking. Notice how they adjust determiners to match context. Over time, you will begin to do the same. This is not memorization, this is familiarity. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this important idea. Determiners are not extra grammar rules, they are clarity tools. They help your listener understand exactly what you mean without confusion. When you use determiners comfortably, your English sounds thoughtful and precise. You do not need to be perfect, you only need to be aware. Each time you choose a determiner with intention, you are strengthening your English foundation. Trust yourself. Let clarity guide you. With time, determiners will feel natural, and your English will feel calmer, clearer, and more confident every day. Chapter 16. Sentence Roles. At this stage in your English journey, you already know many parts of speech. You can recognize nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and more. Now comes a powerful shift in understanding. Instead of looking at words one by one, you begin to see how they work together inside a sentence. This is where sentence roles become important. Sentence roles show how words cooperate to create meaning. When you understand roles, English stops feeling like separate pieces and starts feeling like a complete system. Every clear English sentence has a subject. The subject is what the sentence is about. It is the person, thing, or idea that performs the action or exists in a certain state. When you say, she is learning, the word she is the subject because the sentence is centered on her. When you say the lesson was helpful, the lesson is the subject because it is the focus of the sentence. The subject gives the sentence direction. Without it, English loses clarity. Many beginners think the subject is always the first word in a sentence, and often it is, but what matters more is meaning, not position. The subject answers a simple question. Who or what is this sentence about? That question is far more useful than memorizing rules. When you train yourself to ask that question, subjects become easy to identify, even in longer sentences. The object is also an important role, but it plays a different part. The object receives the action of the verb. When you say, she reads a book, the word book is the object because it is receiving the action of reading. Not every sentence has an object, and that is perfectly fine. Some sentences are complete with just a subject and a verb, but when an object appears, it adds detail and direction to the action. Understanding the difference between subject and object helps learners avoid confusion, especially with pronouns. She helped him sounds natural because she is doing the action and him is receiving it. Focusing on roles instead of grammar names makes this clarity grow naturally. The predicate is the part of the sentence that tells us something about the subject. It usually includes the verb and everything that comes after it. In the sentence, they are practicing English every day. The predicate is are practicing English every day. The predicate carries information. It tells us what the subject is doing, feeling, or experiencing. Thinking of the predicate as the information part of the sentence makes it much easier to understand. Within predicates, English uses complements and modifiers. Complements are words or phrases that complete the meaning of a verb. They are necessary. Without them, the sentence would feel unfinished. In "she is a teacher," the phrase "a teacher" is a complement because it completes the meaning of "is." Modifiers, on the other hand, add extra information but are not essential. In "she is a very kind teacher," the words very and kind are modifiers. They add detail, but the sentence can survive without them. This distinction is important because it helps learners understand why some words feel necessary and others feel optional. English prefers balance. It wants enough information to be clear, but not so much that the sentence feels heavy. Understanding complements and modifiers helps learners make that balance naturally. One of the most important ideas in this chapter is that word roles matter more than labels. Native speakers do not think in terms like subject or predicate while speaking. They think in meaning. They know what the sentence is about and what information they want to give. Roles explain how English organizes that meaning, but they do not control it. When learners focus too much on labels, they freeze. When they focus on meaning, they move forward. Sentence meaning can shift dramatically when roles change. "The dog chased the cat" feels very different from "the cat chased the dog," even though the words are almost the same. The roles of subject and object change, and the meaning changes with them. This is why understanding roles gives learners real power. You are no longer guessing, you are choosing meaning. In spoken English, awareness of sentence roles helps learners follow conversations more easily. When listening, you begin to catch who is doing what, even if you miss a word. This improves comprehension and reduces panic. Spoken English often drops extra words, but roles remain clear. Training your ear to listen for roles is a powerful skill. Common beginner errors often come from role confusion. Learners may mix up subject and object pronouns, or place words in positions that feel logical in their own language but not in English. These mistakes are normal. They are signs of growth. The goal is not to eliminate mistakes immediately, but to understand why something feels off so correction becomes easier over time. Sentence structure clarity grows when learners build sentences slowly and intentionally. Start with a clear subject, add a clear verb, then decide if you need an object or a complement. Finally, add modifiers if you want more detail. This step-by-step thinking mirrors how strong English sentences are built naturally. As we come to the end of this chapter, take a moment to recognize how far you have come. You are no longer just learning words, you are learning how English thinks. Sentence roles give you structure without pressure. They explain why sentences work the way they do. Remember this: you do not need to analyze every sentence you speak. Understanding roles is about awareness, not control. With time and practice, roles become instinct. And when that happens, English begins to flow with confidence, clarity, and calm. Chapter 17. Word Placement. As your English improves, you may notice something interesting. You know the right words. You understand the meaning. but sometimes your sentences still sound a little unusual, even though nothing is technically wrong. This usually happens because of word placement. Word placement is not about advanced grammar. It is about rhythm, clarity, and comfort. English listeners feel meaning not only through words, but through where those words appear. When placement feels natural, confidence follows. Word placement matters because English has a strong sense of order. This order helps listeners understand quickly without effort. When words appear in expected places, the brain relaxes. When they appear in unexpected places, the listener has to work harder. This does not mean you are wrong or unclear. It simply means English has patterns that help communication flow smoothly. Learning these patterns helps your English sound calm and natural. English sentence rhythm is deeply connected to placement. English likes a gentle forward movement. The sentence usually starts with the subject, moves to the verb, and then adds information step by step. This rhythm feels balanced. When learners place words randomly or follow the rhythm of their first language, English can sound heavy or confusing. Understanding rhythm helps you place words with confidence instead of hesitation. The typical word order in English is surprisingly simple. Most sentences follow this pattern. Subject first, then verb, then object or complement, and finally extra information like time or place. I study English at home every evening follows this flow naturally. You do not need to memorize the pattern as a rule. You only need to notice how often English uses it. Repetition builds instinct. Word placement also allows you to change emphasis. English speakers move words slightly to highlight what matters most. When you say, "I only study English at night," the word only changes the focus. When you say, "At night, I study English," the placement adds emphasis to time. English uses placement to guide attention gently, not aggressively. This makes speech expressive without being dramatic. Adjectives and adverbs are especially sensitive to placement. Adjectives usually appear before nouns or after linking verbs, and adverbs often appear near the verbs they describe. When learners place these words incorrectly, sentences may still be understood, but they feel uncomfortable. "She speaks English very well" feels natural, while "she very well speaks English" feels forced. Listening carefully to natural speech helps these patterns settle into your mind. Questions have their own placement logic, and clarity here builds confidence quickly. English often moves helping verbs to the front in questions. "You are ready" becomes "Are you ready?" This change signals a question instantly. Learners sometimes forget this movement and keep statement order in questions, which can sound uncertain. Understanding that questions have a clear and friendly structure makes speaking much easier. Spoken English and written English handle placement slightly differently. In spoken English, flexibility and rhythm matter more than strict structure. People start sentences with adverbs, conjunctions, or phrases to guide conversation. "Actually, I think work" or "at first, I was nervous" sound natural in speech. Written English often prefers more balanced structure, but spoken English welcomes variation as long as meaning is clear. Common learner mistakes with placement usually come from direct translation or overthinking. Learners may place words where they would appear in their first language, or they may move words too much trying to sound advanced. English prefers simplicity. When in doubt, return to the basic flow: subject, verb, then information. Simple placement sounds confident. Practical sentence reordering is a powerful exercise. Take a sentence and move one part gently to see how meaning or emphasis changes. I learned English online last year can become last year I learned English online. Both are correct. Both feel natural. Practicing this flexibility helps you feel in control instead of trapped by structure. As placement improves, fluency grows naturally. You stop pausing to decide where words should go. You trust the rhythm. You feel when something sounds right or wrong. This feeling is not magic, it is familiarity. It comes from exposure, listening, and gentle practice. As we close this chapter, remember this important truth. Word placement is not about perfection, it is about comfort. When words sit in the right places, your English sounds relaxed and confident. You do not need to force anything. Let patterns guide you. You are not learning English to impress. You are learning English to connect. Clear placement helps that connection happen smoothly. Trust yourself. Trust the rhythm. With time, your English will not only be correct, it will sound natural and confident, just like you want it to. Chapter 18. Flexible Words. At some point in your English learning journey, you may feel confused by a strange experience. You see a word you already know, you understand it clearly in one sentence, and then suddenly you see the same word used in a completely different way. It feels like the word has changed its identity. This moment often creates doubt and frustration for learners, but it should not. This is not a problem. This is one of the most natural and powerful features of English. English words are flexible. They are not locked into one role forever. They change roles based on how they are used, and once you understand this idea, English begins to feel simpler instead of more confusing. English words change roles because English values efficiency and clarity. Instead of creating a new word for every situation, English often allows one word to do more than one job. This does not mean the word becomes unclear, it means the language trusts context to guide meaning. Context is everything. When you understand context, flexible words stop feeling dangerous and start feeling useful. One of the most common examples of flexibility is when a word acts as both a noun and a verb. Take the word work. In one sentence, my work is difficult, the word work is a noun. It names an idea. In another sentence, I work every day, the same word becomes a verb. It now shows action. The word itself has not changed, only its role has changed. English listeners do not get confused because the sentence structure and position make the meaning clear. Another example is the word phone. My phone is new uses phone as a noun. I will phone you later uses the same word as a verb. English does this naturally and confidently. Learners sometimes feel that this is strange, but native speakers do not think about it at all. They understand meaning instantly because the role is clear from how the word is placed and what surrounds it. Words can also shift between adjective and noun roles. Consider the word poor. In they are poor, the word poor is an adjective describing people. In the poor need support, the same word becomes a noun referring to a group of people. English allows this shift because the meaning is clear and useful. This flexibility allows English to be expressive without becoming complicated. Context decides meaning, not dictionaries. This is one of the most important ideas in this chapter. Many learners rely heavily on dictionaries, and while dictionaries are helpful, they can also create confusion. A dictionary may list several meanings and roles for one word, which can feel overwhelming. Instead of trying to choose the correct meaning from a list, it is far better to look at the sentence. Ask yourself what the word is doing. Is it naming something? Is it showing action? Is it describing something? The sentence will guide you. Native speakers understand flexibility not because they memorize rules, but because they feel patterns. They grow up hearing words used in different roles, so their brains learn to recognize meaning instantly. Learners can develop this same ability through exposure and calm observation. You do not need to analyze every sentence, you only need to notice patterns over time. Real-life English is full of flexible words. The word light can describe weight, brightness, or even mood. The word clean can describe an object or describe an action. The word change can be a noun in change is good and a verb in people change. These shifts are not exceptions, they are normal English behavior. Sentence comparison is one of the best ways to build confidence with flexible words. When you see, I had a long walk and I walk every morning, notice how the sentence structure changes the role of the word walk. The meaning remains clear in both cases. Comparing sentences like this trains your brain to recognize roles without stress. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is trying to memorize which part of speech a word belongs to. This creates pressure and slows down thinking. English does not expect you to remember labels while speaking. It expects you to understand meaning. When you focus on meaning, role recognition happens naturally. Thinking instead of memorizing is the key to mastering flexible words. Ask simple questions. What is happening here? What is being named? What is being done? These questions guide understanding far better than grammar charts. English rewards calm thinking, not fast thinking. As you become more comfortable with flexible words, something important happens. You stop feeling afraid of new sentences. You trust yourself to understand meaning even when the structure looks different. This trust builds real confidence, the kind that allows you to keep speaking even when you are unsure. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. Flexible words are not traps, they are tools. They make English rich, expressive, and efficient. You do not need to control them. You only need to understand how they behave in context. Let go of the idea that every word must belong to one fixed category. English is alive, and living languages move. When you accept that movement, English becomes easier, not harder. Trust your understanding. Trust context. With time, flexible words will feel natural, and your English confidence will grow quietly and strongly. Chapter 19. Common Confusions. As you move forward in English, mistakes may feel more noticeable than progress. You understand more than before, yet small errors still appear, and that can be frustrating. This feeling is very normal. In fact, it is a sign that you are learning deeply. Common confusions exist not because learners are careless, but because English has patterns that overlap and interact. In this chapter, we will look at the most frequent learner confusions calmly and gently, without blame, and turn them into opportunities for growth. One of the most common areas of confusion is between adjectives and adverbs. Learners often say things like, "She speaks very good," instead of, "She speaks very well." This happens because both words describe something, but they describe different things. Adjectives describe nouns, while adverbs describe actions. The confusion disappears when you stop thinking about word labels and start asking one question. What is being described here? If the word describes an action like speaking, moving, or thinking, an adverb is usually needed. When learners focus on meaning instead of form, correction becomes easier and faster. Another frequent confusion happens between verbs and nouns, especially with flexible words. A learner might say, I did a mistake instead of I made a mistake, or I have a discuss instead of I have a discussion. These errors happen because English uses certain verbs naturally with certain nouns. This is not about intelligence or effort, it is about exposure. Native speakers hear these patterns thousands of times. Learners can build the same familiarity by noticing which words often appear together instead of translating directly. Preposition misuse is another area that causes stress. Learners may say depend of instead of depend on, or married with instead of married to. These mistakes are extremely common and completely understandable. Prepositions are not logical in isolation. They are learned through use and repetition. The best approach is not memorization, but noticing phrases as complete units. Hearing and repeating depend on or interested in helps the brain store them naturally. Article errors also appear often, especially with a, and the. Learners may use the article too much, too little, or in the wrong place. These mistakes happen because many languages do not use articles the same way English does. Instead of feeling frustrated, it helps to remember that articles are meaning signals. They show whether something is new, specific, or general. Even when articles are incorrect, communication usually continues smoothly. Accuracy improves gradually with awareness and listening. Pronoun confusion is another challenge, especially when learners mix subject and object forms or use the wrong reference. Saying me and my friend went instead of my friend and I went, or confusing he and she are very common early mistakes. These errors are not signs of failure, they are signs that the learner is speaking more and experimenting. Over time, as sentence roles become clearer, pronoun accuracy improves naturally. It is very important to understand why mistakes are normal. Language learning is not a straight line. It is a cycle of trying, adjusting, and trying again. Every mistake shows that your brain is actively working with the language. Silence is far more dangerous than mistakes. When you speak and make errors, you are giving yourself material to improve. Self-correction is a powerful skill, but it must be gentle. Constantly stopping yourself to fix every mistake can damage confidence. A better approach is awareness. When you notice a mistake after speaking, quietly register it and move on. Over time, patterns correct themselves. English fluency grows when learners stay relaxed, not tense. Real learner examples show this clearly. Many confident English speakers today once made the same mistakes you are making now. They confused words, misplaced prepositions, and struggled with articles. What helped them was not perfection, but persistence. They kept speaking, kept listening, and allowed the language to settle naturally. Clear correction patterns help learners improve without pressure. Focus on one area at a time. If you notice many adjective and adverb mistakes, gently practice that area for a while. If articles feel confusing, focus on listening for them in real conversations. Small, focused attention brings big results. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this important truth. Confusion is not the enemy of learning. Fear is. When you approach mistakes with curiosity instead of judgment, progress accelerates. English does not punish you for mistakes, it rewards you for participation. Encouraging growth means trusting the process. You are not behind, you are exactly where a learner should be. Every confusion you face today is a step toward clarity tomorrow. Stay patient, stay engaged. With time, these common confusions will fade and your confidence will rise quietly and steadily. Chapter 20: Real Speech. Up to this point, you have learned how English works. You have explored parts of speech, word roles, placement, and meaning. Now comes the most important step: using all of that knowledge in real communication. This chapter is where English stops being a subject and starts being a living tool. Real speech is not perfect, not polished, and not planned word by word. Real speech is human. It is flexible, emotional, and practical. Understanding this changes everything. In real conversations, parts of speech do not appear as labels or categories. They appear as choices. Speakers choose words quickly based on meaning, feeling, and intention. When someone says, "I was really tired, so I stayed home," they are not thinking about verbs, adverbs, or conjunctions. They are expressing a thought. The grammar works because the meaning is clear. This is how English is meant to be used. Spoken English is flexible by nature. People interrupt themselves, change direction, repeat words, and simplify sentences. They drop unnecessary words and rely on tone, pauses, and facial expression. This does not mean their English is incorrect, it means their English is alive. Learners often believe they must speak in perfect, complete sentences to sound fluent, but this is not true. Fluency comes from comfort, not complexity. Short sentences are powerful in real speech. I understand. That makes sense. I will try. These sentences are clear and confident. Long sentences also appear, especially when explaining ideas or telling stories, but they grow naturally. Native speakers mix short and long sentences without thinking. Learners can do the same by focusing on clarity instead of length. Natural pauses are part of real speech. Silence is not failure, it is thinking time. When someone pauses before speaking, it shows thoughtfulness, not weakness. Words like well, so, and actually help manage these pauses and keep conversation flowing. These small signals give your brain time to choose words calmly. Listening for word roles is a powerful real speech skill. Instead of trying to understand every word, focus on who is doing what. Catch the subject. Catch the main verb. Everything else becomes easier. Even when you miss details, meaning stays clear. This skill reduces panic and builds confidence quickly. Thinking before speaking does not mean translating or planning every sentence. It means having a simple intention. What do I want to say? Am I explaining, asking, agreeing, or reacting? When your intention is clear, words follow more easily. English responds well to intention. Confidence matters more than perfection in real speech. People understand confident mistakes more easily than silent correctness. When you speak with calm energy, listeners focus on meaning, not errors. Most native speakers are patient and supportive. They care more about connection than grammar. Daily practice does not need to be complicated. Real speech practice can happen anywhere. Talk to yourself. Describe what you are doing. React out loud to simple situations. Repeat phrases you hear. Speak in short bursts. 10 minutes of relaxed speaking is more powerful than 1 hour of silent study. Real-life conversations are built from simple pieces. Greetings, reactions, questions, and short explanations form the core of communication. When you listen closely, you will notice that advanced speakers use simple structures very well. They do not impress with grammar. They connect with clarity. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this clearly. English is not a performance. It is a tool for connection. Parts of speech support communication, but they do not control it. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to simplify. You are allowed to grow slowly. Real speech begins the moment you stop trying to sound perfect and start trying to be understood. Trust your knowledge. Trust your intention. Speak with calm confidence. English will meet you there. Chapter 21. Meaning Shift. As your English understanding deepens, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. The same word can appear in two sentences and create completely different meanings. This is not a trick and it is not a mistake. This is how English works. Meaning in English is shaped not only by the word itself, but by the role that word plays in a sentence. When learners understand this idea, English stops feeling unpredictable and starts feeling logical and expressive. A single word can belong to different parts of speech, and when its role changes, its meaning changes with it. This shift does not happen randomly, it happens because the word is doing a different job. English listeners understand this instinctively. Learners can develop the same instinct by focusing on function instead of form. Consider how a word behaves when it acts as a noun versus when it acts as a verb. The word plan is a good example. In we have a plan, the word plan is a noun. It names an idea. In we plan to leave early, the same word becomes a verb. Now it shows action. The core idea remains connected, but the meaning shifts from something that exists to something that happens. English allows this shift because it keeps communication efficient. The same thing happens with words that shift between adjective and adverb roles. When you say, she is quiet, the word quiet describes a state. It tells us what she is like. When you say she speaks quietly, the word quietly describes how the action happens. The feeling of the sentence changes even though the situation may be the same. Understanding what the word is describing helps learners choose the correct form naturally. Context is more important than any dictionary. Dictionaries list meanings, but they cannot show you intention. Context tells you what the speaker wants to express. Many learners feel overwhelmed when they see a word with many definitions. Instead of trying to choose the correct definition, look at the sentence. Look at the position of the word. Look at what comes before and after it. The meaning will usually become clear. Real-life sentence comparisons are one of the best ways to feel meaning shift. Compare, I had a long talk with, we talk every day. The word talk changes role and meaning, but the sentences remain clear. English speakers do not analyze this consciously. They feel it. Learners can build this feeling by noticing patterns rather than memorizing rules. Native speakers feel meaning because they are sensitive to roles, not because they know grammar names. They sense whether a word is naming something, doing something, or describing something. This sensitivity comes from exposure and repetition. It is not a special talent, it is a learned instinct. Common learner confusion happens when learners try to fix words into one category forever. This creates tension and slows understanding. English does not work this way. It allows words to move and adapt. When learners accept this flexibility, they become more relaxed and confident. Thinking practice helps build this skill. When you meet a familiar word in a new sentence, pause and ask a simple question. What is this word doing here? Is it naming, acting, or describing? This small habit trains your brain to recognize meaning shifts naturally. Confidence grows when you stop fearing change. Meaning shift is not something to control, it is something to observe. The more you listen and read, the more natural these shifts become. Over time, you will feel meaning instead of translating it. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. English meaning is alive. It moves with context and purpose. When you understand that, confusion turns into curiosity. You stop asking, "Why is this different?" and start thinking, "What is this doing here?" Trust yourself. You are learning to think in English, not memorize English. Meaning shift is proof that your understanding is growing deeper. With patience and awareness, your confidence will continue to rise, and English will feel clearer, calmer, and more natural every day. Chapter 22. Sentence Clarity. At this stage in your English journey, you may notice a new desire forming inside you. You do not just want to speak English, you want to speak clearly. You want people to understand you easily without asking questions or feeling confused. Sentence clarity is not about sounding advanced or intelligent, it is about helping your listener follow your thoughts smoothly. Clear sentences feel calm, confident, and respectful of the listener's time and attention. A clear sentence has one main idea. Everything else in the sentence supports that idea. When sentences feel confusing, it is often because too many ideas are competing for attention. English prefers focus. When you choose one main message and build around it carefully, clarity appears naturally. This does not require complex grammar, it requires thoughtful choice. One of the most powerful ways to improve clarity is removing extra words. Beginners often believe more words mean better English, but the opposite is usually true. Extra words can hide meaning instead of improving it. Saying, "I am very extremely happy at this moment in time" feels heavy, while "I am very happy now" feels clear and natural. Clarity grows when you trust simple language. Choosing strong verbs is another important step. Strong verbs carry meaning on their own. Weak verbs often need many extra words to explain them. Compare "she made a decision to leave" with "she decided to leave." Both are correct, but the second is clearer and more direct. English prefers verbs that act, not verbs that hide behind nouns. Adjectives and adverbs are useful, but too many of them can blur meaning. A sentence filled with descriptions may sound impressive, but it can also feel unclear. English values precision over decoration. One well-chosen adjective, often does more than three vague ones. When learners learn to limit adjectives and adverbs, their sentences become sharper and easier to understand. Avoiding repetition also improves clarity. Repetition often happens when learners feel unsure and repeat the same idea in different words. This is understandable, especially at early stages. Over time, learning to trust your words helps repetition fade. If your sentence already expresses the idea once, you do not need to say it again. Silence can be clarity. Spoken clarity and written clarity are slightly different. In spoken English, pauses, tone, and body language help support meaning. You can repeat or rephrase gently if needed. In written English, the sentence must stand on its own. This means written sentences often need more careful structure, while spoken sentences can be more flexible. Understanding this difference helps learners adjust naturally. Improving weak sentences is a skill that grows with awareness. A weak sentence often has a vague verb, too many fillers, or unclear focus. By identifying the main idea and strengthening the verb, clarity improves quickly. This process does not need to be fast. Slow editing builds strong habits. Step-by-step sentence editing is a powerful practice. Start by asking what the sentence is trying to say. Then remove anything that does not support that meaning. Next, check the verb. Is it clear and active? Finally, check modifiers. Do they add value or confusion? This gentle process builds confidence without pressure. Practical examples help clarity settle into instinct. Take a sentence like, I was in a situation where I felt like I was not able to understand what was happening. This can become, I did not understand what was happening. The meaning stays, but clarity increases. These small changes make a big difference in communication. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this important truth. Clear English is not simple English. It is intentional English. It shows respect for your listener and confidence in your message. You do not need to impress, you need to connect. Calm mastery comes from awareness, not perfection. Each time you simplify a sentence, you grow stronger. Each time you choose clarity over complexity, your English becomes more powerful. Trust your voice. Trust simplicity. With time, clear sentences will become natural and your English will feel confident, calm, and truly effective. Chapter 23. Natural Rhythm. At some point in learning English, learners realize something important. They may know the grammar, they may know the words, but their English still does not sound smooth. It sounds correct, yet slightly stiff. This is not a problem with knowledge, it is a rhythm issue. Natural rhythm is what makes English sound alive, relaxed, and confident. It is not about speed, it is about flow. English has its own sentence rhythm, just like music has a beat. Some words are strong and clear, while others are softer and lighter. Native speakers do not pronounce every word with the same strength. They stress important words and soften less important ones. This creates movement and balance. When learners stress every word equally, English can sound robotic even when it is correct. Learning rhythm helps English breathe. Stress plays a major role in meaning. In English, content words such as nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs usually carry stress. Function words like articles, prepositions, and helping verbs are often unstressed. When you say, I want to learn English, the words want, learn, and English carry more weight than I or to. This pattern helps listeners understand meaning quickly without effort. Balancing short and long sentences also affects rhythm. Real English uses both. Short sentences add power and clarity. Long sentences add explanation and emotion. When learners use only long sentences, speech feels heavy. When learners use only short sentences, speech feels flat. Mixing both creates a natural rise and fall that feels comfortable to the listener. Pausing naturally is another key part of rhythm. Many learners fear silence and rush their words, but pauses are not mistakes. They are signals. A short pause can highlight an idea, give the listener time to think, or help the speaker choose words calmly. Native speakers pause often, especially before important points. Learning to pause confidently makes English sound thoughtful instead of nervous. Parts of speech directly affect rhythm. Verbs drive movement. Nouns carry meaning. Adjectives add color. Adverbs adjust feeling. When these parts work together smoothly, sentences flow naturally. When too many adjectives or adverbs are packed together, rhythm slows and meaning blurs. Rhythm improves when learners choose words carefully and let strong words do the work. Listening practice is essential for developing rhythm. You cannot feel rhythm by reading rules. You must hear it repeatedly. Listening to natural conversations, podcasts, or simple stories trains your ear to recognize stress patterns and pauses. At first, you may not understand everything, but your brain is still learning the music of English. The shadowing technique is one of the most effective rhythm-building tools. Shadowing means listening to a short piece of spoken English and repeating it immediately, trying to copy not just the words, but the rhythm, stress, and pauses. This practice helps your mouth and brain work together. It removes hesitation and builds natural flow without conscious effort. Real conversation examples show rhythm clearly. People say things like, I was really tired, so I went home early with a gentle rise and fall. They slow down for important words and move quickly through small ones. They pause slightly before adding emotion or explanation. Watching and listening closely to these moments helps learners internalize rhythm naturally. As rhythm improves, speaking confidence grows. You stop worrying about sounding perfect. You focus on sounding clear and comfortable. Your voice becomes calmer. Your sentences feel more connected. Listeners respond more positively because your English feels easier to follow. As we come to the end of this chapter, remember this clearly. Natural rhythm is not something you force, it is something you absorb. It comes from listening, repeating, and allowing yourself to speak without pressure. You do not need to sound like a native speaker. You need to sound like yourself in English. Keep listening, keep shadowing, keep trusting your progress. With time, rhythm will settle into your speech, and English will feel less like a foreign language and more like a natural extension of your voice. Chapter 24. Thinking English. At some point, every English learner reaches a hidden wall. You know words, you know grammar, you understand lessons. But when it is time to speak, everything slows down. Your mind goes quiet, then busy, then tired. This happens because you are translating. You are thinking in your first language, then converting every thought into English. This process is exhausting, and it blocks natural speaking. Thinking in English is not a talent, it is a skill, and it can be learned calmly and gently. Translation slows speaking because it adds an extra step. Instead of one clear thought, your brain handles two systems at the same time. You think an idea, translate it, check it, then speak it. By the time the sentence comes out, confidence is already gone. Native speakers do not translate, they respond. Thinking in English removes that delay and replaces it with flow. The shift begins when learners stop thinking in rules and start thinking in roles. Instead of asking yourself which tense or structure to use, ask a simpler question. What is happening here? Who is doing what? Is this about now, before, or later? English organizes meaning through roles, not grammar labels. When your thinking follows meaning, grammar follows naturally. Visualizing meaning is a powerful step toward thinking in English. English works well with images. Instead of translating words, imagine situations. Picture yourself walking into a room. Picture someone speaking. Picture an object moving. When you think in pictures, English words attach themselves naturally. This removes pressure and speeds up response time. Building sentences naturally means starting small. You do not need full, complex sentences to think in English. Simple thoughts are enough. I am tired. I need help. This is important. These sentences come directly from meaning, not translation. As confidence grows, sentences grow naturally without force. Real-time speaking practice is essential for this shift. Thinking in English cannot happen only in your head. It must happen in motion. Talk to yourself. Describe what you are doing. React to what you see. Do not wait for perfect sentences. Allow English to come out incomplete at first. Fluency grows through movement, not silence. Listening for structure instead of words also helps learners think in English. When listening, do not try to translate every sentence. Instead, notice patterns. Notice how speakers start sentences. Notice where verbs appear. Notice how ideas connect. Your brain begins to absorb English thinking automatically when you listen this way. Confidence matters more than accuracy during this stage. Many learners wait to feel correct before they feel confident, but confidence must come first. Confident mistakes are stepping stones. Silent accuracy slows growth. When you allow yourself to speak freely, English thinking develops faster and feels lighter. Daily mindset habits make a big difference. Start your day with simple English thoughts. Name objects around you. Describe your plan. End your day by reflecting in English, even with simple words. These small habits train your brain to switch into English mode without effort. Practical thinking drills can support this shift gently. One effective drill is naming actions as you do them. Another is answering simple questions out loud without preparation. Another is repeating short sentences you hear without translating them. These drills are not tests, they are training. As we wrap up this chapter, Remember this clearly. Thinking in English is not about speed or perfection. It is about trust, trusting meaning, trusting context, trusting yourself. The more you let go of translation, the more English meets you halfway. You are not losing your first language. You are gaining a second way to think. That is powerful. Be patient with yourself. Stay consistent. With time, English thoughts will come naturally, and speaking will feel lighter, faster, and more confident than ever before. Chapter 25: Error Control. At this point in your English journey, mistakes may feel closer than ever. You notice them more. You hear them when you speak. You replay them in your mind after conversations. This does not mean you are getting worse. It means you are becoming more aware. Awareness is progress. Error control is not about eliminating mistakes. It is about learning how to live with them calmly, correct them gently, and keep moving forward without fear. Mistakes are not a sign that English is difficult or that you are failing. They are a natural part of how the brain learns language. Children make thousands of mistakes while learning their first language, and no one stops them or judges them. They keep speaking, they adjust naturally. Adult learners deserve the same patience. English grows through use, not avoidance. Many errors repeat themselves. Adjective and adverb confusion. Verb tense slips. Article mistakes. Preposition choices. Pronoun mix-ups. These are not random. They appear because these areas require time and exposure to settle. Revisiting them is not going backward. It is how learning deepens. Each time you notice the same error, your brain is collecting data, preparing for correction. The key to error control is learning how to notice mistakes gently. Gentle noticing means awareness without judgment. Instead of saying, "I spoke badly," say, "That sentence felt unclear." This shift in thinking removes emotional pressure and keeps the mind open. When fear disappears, correction becomes easier. Fixing errors while speaking does not mean stopping yourself every few seconds. Constant self-interruption breaks flow and confidence. Real speakers correct selectively. If an error blocks meaning, they adjust. If it does not, they continue. This is an important skill. Communication comes first. Perfection comes later. Prioritizing meaning over form is essential. Ask yourself one question while speaking. Is my listener understanding me? If the answer is yes, you are succeeding. Many native speakers make small grammar slips, but communication continues smoothly. Meaning carries conversation, not flawless structure. Self-correction patterns appear naturally when learners relax. You may notice yourself rephrasing a sentence without stopping completely. You may hear yourself say, "I go yesterday." I mean, "I went yesterday." This is not weakness, this is progress. Your brain is adjusting in real time. That is exactly how fluency develops. Confidence while correcting comes from attitude. Correcting yourself calmly shows control, not insecurity. Listeners respect clarity. A simple correction delivered smoothly feels natural in conversation. There is no need to apologize or explain. A gentle adjustment is enough. Listening plays a powerful role in error control. The more you listen to natural English, the more your brain recognizes correct patterns. Over time, incorrect forms begin to feel uncomfortable on their own. This internal signal is far more powerful than memorized rules. Listening trains instinct. Practice strategies should support confidence, not pressure. Choose one small area to focus on at a time. Listen for it. Practice it lightly. Speak freely without monitoring everything else. Progress happens faster when focus is narrow and calm. One helpful strategy is delayed correction. Instead of correcting yourself while speaking, reflect afterward. Think about one sentence you want to improve. Correct it once, then move on. This keeps fluency alive while still encouraging growth. Another helpful approach is positive comparison. Notice improvement, not just mistakes. Compare how you speak now to how you spoke months ago. You will see growth that daily awareness sometimes hides. Confidence grows when progress is recognized. As we close this chapter, remember this important truth. Error control is not about control. It is about trust. Trust that your brain is learning. Trust that mistakes are temporary. Trust that communication matters more than correctness. You are not expected to speak perfect English. You are expected to speak real English. Stay curious. Stay relaxed. Let errors guide you, not stop you. With time, self-correction will feel natural, confidence will rise, and English will feel like a skill you own, not a test you fear. Chapter 26. Fluency Tools. When learners think about fluency, they often imagine speaking fast, using big words, or sounding exactly like a native speaker. But real fluency is something much quieter and much more powerful. Fluency is the ability to keep going. It is the ability to continue speaking even when the perfect word does not come immediately. It is the ability to stay calm, adjust your sentence, and express your meaning without panic. Fluency tools exist to support this ability. They are not shortcuts. They are survival skills for real communication. One of the most important fluency tools is the natural use of fillers. Fillers are small words or sounds that give your brain time to think while keeping the conversation alive. Words like well, so, actually, you know, and sounds like or are not mistakes. Native speakers use them constantly. They signal that the speaker is thinking, not failing. When learners avoid fillers completely, their speech often becomes tense and rushed. Using fillers naturally allows your mind to breathe. Another powerful fluency tool is rephrasing. Sometimes you start a sentence and realize it is going in the wrong direction. Many learners freeze at this moment. Fluent speakers do not. They simply rephrase. They say things like, I mean, let me say that again, or what I want to say is. These phrases give you permission to adjust your message without embarrassment. Rephrasing is not weakness, it is control. Buying thinking time is closely connected to rephrasing. English offers many polite and natural ways to slow down a moment. Phrases like, let me think, that's a good question, or just a second, are very common in conversation. They show respect and confidence. When learners know they are allowed to pause, speaking becomes much less stressful. Simplifying ideas is another key fluency tool. Many learners try to express complex thoughts using complex sentences, and this creates pressure. Fluent speakers often do the opposite. They break ideas into smaller pieces. Instead of one long sentence, they use two or three short ones. This makes meaning clearer and keeps the conversation moving. Simplicity is not basic, it is effective. Choosing correct word roles quickly is also part of fluency. You do not need to choose perfect grammar. You need to choose meaning. Is this word naming something, doing something, or describing something? That quick decision is enough. When learners stop searching for the perfect form and focus on the role, speech flows more easily. Everyday conversation is full of small tools that support fluency. People repeat keywords for emphasis. They use simple connectors like and, but, and, so. They ask for clarification. They confirm understanding. These habits keep communication alive even when language is imperfect. Fluency is teamwork between speaker and listener. Speaking without panic is perhaps the most important fluency tool of all. Panic shuts down thinking. Calm opens it. When you accept that pauses, fillers, and small corrections are normal, fear loses power. Your brain stays active. Your words keep coming. Confidence grows naturally from this calm state. Real-life examples show this clearly. Imagine someone saying, I was trying to explain what happened, and I realized I didn't understand it myself, so I stopped. This speaker is fluent, even with pauses. The message is clear, the listener understands. Fluency is happening. Practice routines help these tools become automatic. One effective routine is speaking for 1 minute about a simple topic without stopping, using fillers when needed. Another is practicing rephrasing intentionally. Start a sentence, then change it calmly. Another is listening to natural conversations and noticing how often speakers pause and adjust. Confidence reinforcement comes from repetition without judgment. The more you use fluency tools, the more natural they feel. Over time, you stop thinking about them. They become part of your speaking instinct. This is how real fluency is built. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. Fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It is about staying connected to your message. Fluency tools are not signs of weakness, they are signs of experience. Give yourself permission to pause. Give yourself permission to adjust. Give yourself permission to speak imperfectly. When you do, English stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a tool you control. That is real fluency, and you are closer to it than you think. Chapter 27. Daily Practice. At this stage of your English journey, one truth becomes very clear. Progress does not come from big effort once in a while, it comes from small effort every day. Many learners wait for motivation, free time, or the perfect moment to study. But English does not grow that way. It grows quietly through routine. Daily practice is not about studying harder. It is about showing up consistently even when energy is low and time is short. Consistency always beats intensity. Studying for 2 hours once a week feels impressive, but it rarely leads to lasting change. 10 focused minutes every day trains the brain far more effectively. Daily contact keeps English fresh in your mind. Words stay active. Sentence patterns feel familiar. Confidence grows because English becomes part of your life instead of a separate task. A simple 10-minute daily practice plan is enough to create real progress. This plan does not require books, apps, or complicated schedules. It only requires attention. In those 10 minutes, you might speak for 3 minutes, listen for 3 minutes, and reflect for 4 minutes. The exact structure matters less than the habit itself. When practice is short, resistance disappears. Noticing parts of speech in daily life is a powerful habit. You do not need to analyze sentences deeply. Simply notice. Notice how a noun names something. Notice how a verb moves the sentence forward. Notice how an adjective adds color. This awareness trains your brain naturally. English becomes something you observe, not something you memorize. Speaking to yourself is one of the most effective daily practices. Many learners feel shy about this, but it is completely normal. Talk about what you are doing. Talk about how you feel. Ask yourself simple questions and answer them out loud. This kind of speaking removes pressure because there is no audience. It builds fluency quietly and safely. Daily life itself is the best practice environment. You do not need special lessons to practice English. Cooking, walking, working, shopping, and resting all provide material. Describe objects around you. Describe actions. React to situations. When English connects to real life, it stops feeling abstract and starts feeling useful. Listening actively is another essential daily habit. Active listening means listening with purpose, not just letting sound play in the background. Choose simple content. Focus on rhythm, word order, and common phrases. You do not need to understand every word. You need to notice patterns. Over time, your brain absorbs structure naturally. Journaling with intention helps solidify learning. You do not need long writing sessions. A few sentences are enough. Write about your day. Write about one thought. Write about something you learned. The goal is not perfect writing. The goal is expression. Writing slows down thinking and helps you notice gaps gently. Tracking progress does not require charts or tests. Simple awareness is enough. Notice when sentences come faster. Notice when you hesitate less. Notice when you understand more without effort. These small signs are proof of growth. Progress often feels invisible day to day, but it becomes clear over weeks and months. Motivation strategies should support habit, not replace it. Motivation comes and goes. Habit stays. Tie English practice to something you already do every day, like drinking tea, walking, or waking up. When English practice becomes part of an existing routine, it no longer depends on mood. Be kind to yourself when days are missed. Missing a day does not destroy progress. Quitting does. Return gently. Resume the habit without guilt. English learning is a long journey, not a short challenge. The goal is continuation, not perfection. As we close this chapter, remember this deeply. Daily practice is not about discipline. It is about relationship. You are building a relationship with English. Short, consistent contact builds trust and familiarity. Over time, English stops feeling foreign and starts feeling familiar. Adopt the habit mindset. Show up daily in small ways. Let English walk with you through ordinary moments. This is how real fluency grows, quietly and steadily, one simple day at a time. Chapter 28. Real Conversations. When learners imagine English conversations, they often picture perfect sentences, advanced vocabulary, and fast responses. But real conversations do not work that way. Real conversations are imperfect, emotional, and flexible. People pause, change direction, repeat ideas, and adjust their language constantly. Understanding this truth is freeing. It removes pressure and allows English to become a tool for connection instead of a performance to be judged. Textbook English teaches structure, and structure is important, but real conversation uses structure lightly. In real life, people rarely speak in full, carefully planned sentences. They speak in moments. Short responses, follow-up questions, and emotional reactions make up most conversations. When learners try to speak like a textbook, they often sound unnatural and feel tense. When they speak like real people, communication flows. Asking questions naturally is one of the most important conversational skills. Real questions are simple. What do you think? How was it? Why? These questions invite conversation without pressure. You do not need complex question forms to sound polite or interested. Tone and intention matter more than grammar complexity. A simple question asked with genuine interest opens doors. Answering with confidence does not mean answering perfectly. It means answering clearly and honestly. In real conversations, people often give short answers first and add details only if needed. It was good. I liked it. Not really. These responses are normal and effective. Learners often believe they must give long answers to sound fluent, but confidence often appears in simplicity. Adjusting sentence length is a natural part of conversation. When an idea is simple, short sentences work best. When explaining or sharing a story, sentences naturally grow longer. Fluent speakers move between short and long sentences without thinking. Learners can do the same by listening to the flow of the conversation instead of forcing structure. Emotion plays a big role in real speech. English speakers show interest, surprise, agreement, or hesitation through tone and word choice. Simple words like really, actually, wow, and oh carry emotional weight. Using these words naturally makes speech sound alive. Emotion helps meaning travel faster than perfect grammar. Real-life dialogue is built from patterns, not scripts. People greet each other, react, ask follow-up questions, and close conversations gently. These patterns repeat everywhere. When learners recognize them, conversations feel predictable instead of scary. Predictability builds confidence. Listening and responding is a shared responsibility. You do not need to understand every word to respond well. Often, understanding the main idea is enough. Responding to meaning instead of exact words keeps conversation moving. Clarifying politely is also part of real communication. Saying, "Can you explain that again?" or "I did not understand that part," is normal and respectful. Misunderstandings happen in every language, even between native speakers. They are not failures, they are moments of adjustment. When a misunderstanding happens, calm response matters more than correct language. Rephrasing, asking again, or giving an example solves most problems quickly. Panic makes misunderstandings worse. Calm curiosity fixes them. Confidence in interaction grows through experience, not theory. Each conversation you attempt builds skill, even if it feels uncomfortable. Confidence does not mean fear disappears. It means you continue speaking despite fear. Over time, fear loses strength because success becomes familiar. As we close this chapter, remember this clearly. Real conversations are not tests, they are exchanges. You are not being evaluated, you are being understood. English exists to connect people, not to measure perfection. Allow yourself to speak naturally. Allow yourself to pause. Allow yourself to adjust. Each real conversation strengthens your ability to communicate. With time, English will feel less like a subject and more like a shared human space where you belong. Chapter 29. Independent Speaker. There comes a quiet moment in every language learner's journey when something shifts. You stop waiting for permission to speak. You stop asking yourself if your sentence is correct before opening your mouth. You begin to trust that you can communicate, even if your English is not perfect. This moment marks the birth of the independent speaker. Independence in English is not about knowing everything. It is about trusting what you already know and using it freely. Trusting your language ability is the foundation of independence. You have learned words, patterns, and meanings. You have practiced listening, speaking, and thinking in English. Now the most important step is believing that this knowledge lives inside you. Many learners continue to depend on rules, notes, or teachers even when they no longer need them. Independence begins when you allow yourself to speak without checking every step. Thinking without labels is a powerful sign of growth. At the beginning, labels like noun, verb, and tense help organize learning. But fluent speakers do not think in labels. They think in meaning. They think in intention. When you stop asking, "What grammar is this?" and start asking, "What do I want to say?" English becomes lighter and faster. This shift is not careless, it is mature. Using intuition is something learners often underestimate. Your intuition is built from everything you have heard, read, and practiced. When a sentence feels right or wrong, that feeling comes from experience, not guessing. Trusting intuition allows you to move forward even when you are unsure. Over time, intuition becomes more accurate because it is constantly being refined through use. Learning from mistakes is part of independence, not a sign that you still need guidance. Independent speakers do not avoid mistakes. They notice them, adjust, and continue. They do not stop speaking to analyze every error. They allow communication to happen first and improvement to follow naturally. This mindset keeps progress alive. Self-directed improvement means you no longer wait for lessons to tell you what to fix. You listen to yourself. You notice patterns. You choose what to improve next. Maybe you focus on clearer verbs. Maybe you listen more closely to rhythm. Maybe you practice conversations. This freedom allows learning to fit your life instead of controlling it. Language growth does not end with a course. It continues for life. Even native speakers grow their language through reading, conversation, and experience. As an independent speaker, you accept that English will keep evolving with you. There is no final level to reach. There is only deeper comfort and stronger expression. Confidence over perfection is the core belief of independence. You do not need flawless grammar to communicate effectively. You need clarity, intention, and presence. Confident speakers are understood even when they make mistakes. Perfection often creates silence. Confidence creates connection. A speaking identity shift happens at this stage. You stop seeing yourself as a learner who is trying. You begin to see yourself as a speaker who is improving. This identity change is subtle but powerful. It affects how you approach conversations, challenges, and new situations. You belong in English spaces now. Motivation at this level comes from ownership, not pressure. You speak because you want to express yourself, not because you must practice. You listen because you are curious, not because you are assigned. English becomes part of who you are, not something you carry separately. As we reach the end of this chapter, remember this deeply. Independence does not mean you stop learning. It means you stop depending. You trust yourself to grow through use, reflection, and experience. You have done the work. You have built the foundation. Now step forward with confidence. Speak freely. Make mistakes calmly. Learn continuously. You are no longer just studying English. You are living in it. Chapter 30, Graduation. This chapter is not about learning something new. It is about recognizing what has already changed. When you look back to the beginning of this journey, you may remember confusion, hesitation, and uncertainty. English may have felt heavy, distant, or even intimidating. Words felt disconnected. Sentences felt fragile. Speaking felt risky. Now, pause and look again. You are not the same learner who started. Something important has shifted, quietly but powerfully. At the beginning, English may have felt like a puzzle with too many pieces. Parts of speech felt abstract. Rules felt endless. Mistakes felt personal. Over time, clarity replaced confusion. You learned how words work together. You learned how meaning is built. You learned that English is not chaos. It is structure with flexibility, logic with freedom. That understanding did not come overnight. It came through patience, repetition, and trust. Growth does not always feel dramatic while it is happening. Often it feels slow, uneven, quiet. But now, at this moment, you can see it clearly. You think differently. You listen differently. You speak differently. You no longer panic at every sentence. You no longer freeze when a word is missing. You have learned how to move forward instead of stopping. That is real growth. One of the most powerful changes is the release of fear. Fear once controlled your voice. Fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of sounding wrong. Somewhere along this path, fear began to loosen its grip. You learned that mistakes are not enemies, they are guides. You learned that communication matters more than correctness. Fear fades when understanding grows, and your understanding is strong now. Speaking with pride does not mean speaking perfectly. It means speaking honestly and confidently. It means knowing that your English does not need permission to exist. Your voice matters. Your ideas matter. Your effort matters. When you speak now, you carry experience, not just words. That experience gives your English weight and authenticity. This is also the moment when the teacher steps back. Guidance was important at the beginning. Structure was necessary. Support mattered. But now, the goal is independence. The role of the teacher changes, not because learning is finished, but because ownership has begun. The learner no longer waits to be led. The learner chooses direction. And this is the moment when you step forward, not as a student following instructions, but as a speaker making choices. You decide how to use English. You decide when to speak, how to learn, and where to grow next. English becomes something you carry with you, not something you visit occasionally. English is no longer just a subject. It is a life tool. It helps you express ideas, connect with people, access information, and explore opportunities. It travels with you into conversations, work, friendships, and future goals. It becomes part of how you move through the world. The next steps are yours to choose. You may continue improving fluency. You may focus on listening, reading, or storytelling. You may use English professionally or personally. There is no single path forward. What matters is that you keep using English with curiosity and confidence. Growth continues through use, not pressure. As this course comes to a close, take a moment to honor yourself. You showed up. You stayed. You practiced. You changed. That deserves recognition. Graduation is not an ending, it is a transition. From guided learning to self-directed growth. From fear to trust. From hesitation to voice. So take a breath. Stand tall in your progress. Speak when you are ready. Pause when you need to. Keep learning naturally. The teacher steps back now, not because you no longer need support, but because you are ready to lead yourself. You are no longer just learning English. You are living in it. You have reached the end of this course, but not the end of your English journey. What you have built here is understanding, confidence, and trust in your own voice. English is no longer something to fear or overthink. It is a tool you can use, shape, and grow with every day. Keep speaking, keep listening, keep learning naturally. Progress will continue as long as you stay connected to the language. Be proud of how far you've come and step forward knowing that English now belongs to you.